You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
And we are live. Greetings to our loyal WFYL listeners around the world. Welcome back to your Philadelphia live stream, only on the Freedom Station. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in once again, because you still have the right to hear and the right to be heard. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G. As always, with me are Philly Chris, Russ the producer, and Liberty Lee. And you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters. And you can listen to our program every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern, only on the Freedom Station, WIL. So let's be heard. I want to remind our listeners that you can participate in the free and open exchange of thoughts and ideas throughout the entire week by visiting MikeGinTheMorning.com. What's it called, Philly Chris?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
How about you, Russ?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
Liberty?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
How about you, Gilbert?
MikeGinTheMorning.com, and as of this week, I think you can also exchange free thoughts and ideas on Twitter.
Oh, that is we'll see. That's the word on the street,
True as
my
that.
friend. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your barber, tell your Uncle Jerry, tell anybody who listen to check us out at MikeGinTheMorning.com. I also want to remind our listeners about the powerhouse lineup we've got here at the Freedom Station. Kick off your mornings with Scott Adams. Bring you the Scott Adams Show weekdays from 9 a.m. until 11. We've got the Kinetic Faith, featuring friend of the Mike G in the Morning program, Rick Crump, preaching value, service, and order, coming at you weekdays at 11 a.m. We've got the one, the only, Dan the Man Bongino, bringing you the Dan Bongino Show weekdays from noon until 3 p.m. And the headliner, we've got intellectual giant Ben Shapiro, bringing you the Ben Shapiro Show weekdays from 3 to 5 p.m. And to cap off your evening, we've got Michael Knowles, bringing you the Michael Knowles Show weekdays from 5 to 6 p.m. So don't forget to tune in and show him some love. And with that, you know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hit it, Russ.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
We've got a couple of very special guests joining us on the Mike G in the Morning program today. Later on in the program, we will have Charlie Giroux, heading up CPAC for many years and now candidate for Pennsylvania governor. Would be an excellent candidate, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about his platform. But to kick off the Mike G in the Morning program, we are joined by Gilbert Ambler. Gilbert Ambler is the founder of Ambler Law Offices with locations in Virginia and Pennsylvania. He's got a focus on the laws of firearms. An author, wrote the book Virginia Gun Law, Armed and Educated, and co-authored the Ultimate FFL Resource Guide. He's been in practice cases throughout Pennsylvania and Virginia, dealing with firearms-related issues and other criminal defense-related matters. Gilbert, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be on.
Might I add that we're doing a special continuing legal education course coming up next month. So if you're an attorney or you know an attorney who needs credits, we will be doing probably the most bad, I don't know, can I say the ASS word on the air, Russell?
Go for it, Mike. You already spelled it.
I guess that works. Our audience members can spell. It is the most badass CLE you're going to find. We're hosting it at 717 Armory. There will be a barbecue lunch and range time included in the CLE, and it will be all gun law for 2 days in a row. That is going to be some magnificent panel, isn't it going to be, Gilbert?
It's going to be great and probably more fun than any other CLE you could come up with.
That much I can guarantee, right? Some of the CLEs, you see people sitting in the back, they're shopping, they're trying to get some work done, they're falling asleep. Anything but paying attention to what's going on. But I think it'll be interesting. You know, we've got some killer members of that panel as well. We've got Brett Regal up in the Poconos who's going to be joining us. We've got the other half of the Justice Brothers, Richard S. Roberts Jr., will be on the panel. And Brian Sitchko, who's got one of the most high-profile death penalty appeals in Pennsylvania at this point in time. It'll be a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we're able to set this up. Gilbert and I have been talking about getting this going for quite some time. So if anybody wants more information about that, you can visit simplycle.com. So, Gilbert, a lot going on in the news these days with regards to this present administration and some of the changes that are coming down the pipe, isn't there?
Yeah, you know, changes with the firearms world have been coming so fast that I feel like people are starting to lose sight. They're starting to tune it out sometimes because there's just so much changing all at once.
Yeah, it seems that we went for quite some time with nothing terribly major going on. You know, during the Obama administration, obviously, we had the issue with trusts that was a major issue that changed some things. And during the Trump administration, we had the whole deal with bump stocks. But with this, I think a lot of people felt like maybe it was coming early on, and maybe let their guard down. Do you think that's part of what happened?
Let their guard down is part of it. And then I think the other part of that is we're seeing changes on multiple fronts all at once. So you're starting to see attention get split up. It's are we watching pistol braces? Are we watching personally made firearms? Are we watching federal firearm licensing requirements? Because it's all changing. It's all changing at the same time.
So let's sort of go through some of the issues, and we will have probably some members of our audience sending in through the comments different questions or asking about different particular topics. But I think that the braces is something that, I mean, that's been going back and forth since I've been practicing law. They can't seem to make up their mind on anything when it comes to pistol braces, right?
Oh, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, how do you have confidence in what they tell you this week? Because it might change again.
And they've done this in the past where they put something out and say, yes, this is 100% perfectly legal. And then later on they say, oh, well, actually, no, right?
Well, it's funny you say that. Earlier today, I was talking with another lawyer who's teaching a CLE in a different state on gun laws. And he was asking, he's teaching the ethics portion. And he was asking what ethics issues I've seen come up with firearms. And we're talking about how difficult it is to advise clients when dealing with ATF, because they'll say one thing right now, and literally within a matter of weeks, they'll change their mind about it. So you've got to kind of caution people when you're advising them on dealing with ATF. This is what they're saying today. This might change tomorrow.
There's certainly a problem with the overall system. I'm not saying that we're going to change that today on this telephone call, but the fact that you've got these unelected bureaucrats essentially writing law where they have no authority to do so. I know they're supposed to, what they claim is that they're interpreting in order to enforce, but what they're essentially doing is they're rewriting law in a lot of these cases, and that's why so many of these end up in court, right?
And that's why the bump stock case was important, because although it might not have been a major issue to the vast majority of gun owners, most gun owners probably did not own bump stocks. But the question is, does an agency have the authority to reinterpret the law in a manner that's contrary to the plain language?
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's possible that Trump saw this 10 steps ahead and said, well, you know, if we go ahead and do this, then they'll probably lay off of legislation, which is the correct way to do it. And if they try to end run this with something so ridiculous, it'll get struck down by the courts eventually.
Well, if that was the plan, he may have had too much faith in the courts.
We've seen that happen. Right?
I don't know what the courts are going to do here. And it sort of highlights a bigger picture. You and I have talked about this before, Mike. But judges are not supposed to decide what they want the law to be. They're supposed to decide what the law is. And the law on machine guns is pretty clear.
Yeah, because based on the interpretation that they handed down, it would really make no sense in a number of other contexts, right? They'd have to go into Staples and get all of those machine gun runners out of there because of the rubber band dial, right?
Right. Gotta be careful.
Right. You know, a shoestring and a key ring, and all of a sudden you've got a machine gun.
Yeah, the shoestrings. So they're going to go into Foot Locker, and they're a bunch of machine gun runners too,
Yeah,
right?
you gotta watch
Just take all these bad guys down.
Right.
What they did was they had an end result that they had in mind. They said, how do we get there? And even the logic and the reasoning that they used, the analysis. I don't know how you look somebody in the eye and repeat that word for word. Would you have a hard time doing that?
Well, I think that's why they're high up on the bench, so they can kind of look over the top of your head as they're telling you this.
That's a good one. You know, I never thought about that. Perhaps there's a specific reason behind it. So with the pistol braces, what do you expect us to ultimately see? I mean, we're going to be involved in litigation at some point, but at a practical matter, what do you think people should expect?
I think pistol braces, I think the game plan at this point from the ATF, and of course we'll know more once the final rule is dropped, but the way I see it, the game plan is make it so complicated that no one wants to bother with a pistol brace. Because with this point system and the totality system, it means we're not going to have broad classes. It's not going to be like it is currently, where they just say generally, hey, the SB Tactical, this model brace is a lawful firearms accessory. Now they're going to say, well, it depends, right? This is every lawyer's favorite answer. It depends. It depends on what type of weapon it's on. It depends on what type of optics are on the weapon. It depends on what hand guards are on the weapon. We're going to have to look at all of this to come up with a totality analysis to determine whether it's a brace or whether it's a stock on that particular weapon, which means no one's going to know for their particular configuration whether it's lawful or not. And to make matters worse, if you do get an approved configuration, right? I get an approval letter. ATF looked at it this week. They said it was okay. A, that doesn't mean that somebody else down the road isn't going to come up with a different or assign a different points total to it. But B, it means now if I want to change something, I want to add a flashlight onto my pistol. Now I've got to get a new analysis done. And so I think they're just going to complicate things so much that gun owners give up on the idea of having a brace and revert to either not using braces, or if they want that similar pattern looking weapon, they go for an SBR.
I mean, bright flashlights are very dangerous.
They are. That's what makes them really dangerous.
You got to watch out when they're bright.
Do you remember when they came down and said, and this may have been before your time, but you remember when they came down and said that if you put it on your shoulder, it becomes an SBR?
Oh yeah, the making of an SBR, which then of course opens all those other questions. You know, if I loan my pistol to Mike and Mike G puts it on his shoulder, and then he hands it back to me, did Mike make an SBR? And furthermore, can I actually shoot it off my forehead and be legal to shoot it off my forehead? But the shoulder alone is the part that's a problem.
Only after Mike modifies it, I think. Yeah.
The forehead brace.
That's right.
That one hasn't come out yet. They're still working on that. For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So, Gilbert, I know that the FFLs, that's where we really want to, get into some conversations here. You and I have represented FFLs a number of times in the past. And you obviously, as I mentioned earlier, co-author of a book on the entire topic, trying to keep people out of jail. But before we get to that, what other questions have you been dealing with lately? I know you answer the non-emergency line through U.S. Law Shield for Pennsylvania and Virginia. So you've got to be getting all kinds of questions from people on these issues.
Sure. Well, I think the concerns right now, I mean, we've already covered pistol braces. The other big concerns are going to be personally made firearms, what you can do and what you can't do. The FFL, obviously, for our clients that we represent, that's a big concern for them as far as what changes are coming down the pipeline for their record-keeping requirements, what they need to be looking for administrative inspections at this point. But that's more of a niche, right? That applies particularly to those FFL clients. But it has effects for everybody else because, like it or not, those record-keeping requirements are going to affect everybody who goes into a gun store and buys a gun through a gun store.
Absolutely. So let's start off with the homemade firearms. What did you call it? Did you say self-made firearms?
Well, the Biden administration is calling it personally made firearms.
Personally
The
made
news,
firearms.
right, and
I just call them
the
firearms.
turn off.
When they're done, if they're not done, then they're not firearms. This firearm is not a firearm, right?
Well, it depends who you ask. I mean, there's certainly legislators who would tell you that a block of metal that you even draw a file across a single time with the intent of making a gun becomes a gun. Now, you and I look at that and say, so that leads to some absurd conclusions, right? Because what if I go down the aisle at Home Depot with a file and file every piece of pipe in there just a little bit with the intent of making it so it can accept a 12-gauge shotgun shell? Is everyone that leaves Home Depot that day, are they now violating the law by possessing firearms?
Yeah, imagine if one guy is a felon who goes in there and buys it.
Right. So this gets out of hand quickly when you start pulling the threads away.
Yeah. And so
crazy.
For those of us who are listening and maybe unfamiliar, for years and years, you had these kits that you can purchase perfectly lawfully, and they'd call them 80% receivers. And basically, the reason they said that is they're about roughly 80% completed, but they're not operable as is. You'd have to ultimately do some things in order to make it a firearm, so it's not a firearm yet. And if you never did that, you never did that, and it's not going to do you any good. It's basically a paperweight. But the administration seems to have some problems with this, and make it seem like this is where all the problems are coming from, and people are dying in the streets because of this, when so many people have lawfully done this for such a long time. And another issue is, where do you draw the line? Gilbert, you made that joke to me a while back about that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the 79% firearms, right?
Right. So if 80 is complete, then is 79 okay, right?
And ultimately, that's what it all comes down to. There has to be some point where you draw the line. Otherwise, you do run into that very, very practical problem of someone going through Home Depot and the items they're purchasing are firearms. If you don't know where to draw that line, you've got that problem.
How do they figure out the percentage, guys? As lawyers, how do they figure out the percentage? Is it like weight or part count, or how do you calculate that?
They pull
As
it out
lawyers,
of their
I went to law school because I'm bad at math.
That's right. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of what we do.
I thought you guys were good with the numbers.
Yeah,
Well,
far from.
I will tell you, this is where sort of industry standard becomes important, because there's been accepted practices as far as what has been considered a firearm in the past and what has not reached the stage of manufacture that it is yet considered a firearm. And what we're starting to see is a shifting of that line by the Biden administration. And that's their intent. Again, just like pistol braces, I think they have the intent to complicate this subject to the point where people are afraid to mess with it.
Gotcha.
Rusty in the comments over here said, first he said, cordless phone is an SBR. I used that on my shoulder many times. And then said, old Hot Wheels are made almost entirely of metal. Hot Wheels are now SBR machine guns.
Well, it's funny because one of the things that has been floated is the intent, in various, I've seen various jurisdictions attempt to ban the same things that the Biden administration is now going after. And often what they look to is the intent, the intent to make something a firearm. But that raises all sorts of questions. Who determines intent? How do we determine intent? If intent alone is the trigger on when something becomes criminal, what if someone intends to build a firearm, but practically cannot build a firearm? For example, I want to build a firearm and I want to build it out of wood. I've got the intent to build a firearm, but I don't want to use any metal. I just want to use wood, and it's never going to actually work. It will never function. If I've got the intent, am I in trouble?
What if you wanted to build a farm out of zucchini and mustard, right?
Right.
It would be your intent.
Yeah.
But you know what happens, practically speaking, as a criminal defense attorney, what happens when you assign so much weight on the intent. It's much like what we see with these PICS denial prosecutions, because if you look at the statute, the person has to provide information that is materially false, knowingly and intentionally. And what ends up happening is anybody who provides any false information is accused of doing so knowingly and intentionally, and it all gets sorted out later. And so you have people who legitimately had no idea that the answer they were providing was false, because maybe they didn't realize what their max possible sentence was on their DUI conviction from 10 years ago or from 20 years ago. Or I've had people convicted of crimes before I was born that you wouldn't think would carry such high max sentences. And even some situations where somebody's convicted of a crime out of state that carries a wildly different max sentence than it would in Pennsylvania. And these people legitimately didn't know, but they get accused. And they say, well, of course you knew. I had a case one time, Gilbert, you may have worked on this when you were at my office. There was a guy who was denied in Pennsylvania based upon the fact that he was indicted in New Jersey. Now, mind you, the reason he was indicted in New Jersey was because he possessed a firearm in his home. Kid you not, possessed a firearm in his home. Clearly, he was exempt. But when Evan raised this,
he's up to no good, right?
He's up to no good. He's got a gun. So
what are you doing in your house?
This is pretty wild, because the way the law is written in New Jersey, possession of a firearm is illegal unless, and then you have to fall into one of those exemptions, the unless categories, for it to not be illegal. And so Evan said, Your Honor, this guy was in his home. Clearly, he's exempt. And the judge said, well, whether or not he's entitled to that exemption is a question of fact to be determined by the jury. And so if he was really in his home and exempt, then you'll be able to show that to the jury, and then he can go home at the end. So this guy was under indictment for this case. The problem is that in New Jersey, when you're indicted, the defendant isn't even present most of the time. It's not like they send you something certified mail. It's not like they come and arrest you or anything like that. You're just indicted. In Pennsylvania, we rarely do grand juries except for cases like the Catholic Church and Sandusky and stuff like that. But typically it's a preliminary hearing. So I was trying to explain to this prosecutor that this guy had no idea that he had been indicted, because you're not there. They don't give you any notice. He didn't know he had been indicted.
Sounds
and
fair.
he was like, he knew. Of course he knew. How could he not know? Just explain to you the way it works in New Jersey. And he's like, of course he knew. You can't be indicted and not know. And no, you certainly can. And we fought the daylights out of this case and ultimately got this guy off. But it took a long, long time of fighting very, very hard. I give him credit because a lot of people would have certainly folded before then. But anyway, the long-winded way to say that they just assign that intent to people with no evidence of intent whatsoever. So that becomes the problem with crafting interpretations like that, or, if you're going to legislate, crafting it that way. Isn't it, Gilbert?
It is. And, this is a little bit of a tangent, so forgive me for that. But talking about materially false statements, I just watched an attorney make an argument. The argument failed, of course, but I thought it was creative, and I gave him points for creativity. He argued that a false statement when purchasing a firearm wasn't a materially false statement because the result's the same. Pennsylvania State Police are going to figure it out. They're going to deny you. So therefore, not a materially false statement because same end result is going to occur. It doesn't matter what you say. So I thought that was pretty creative.
Certainly creative. So then what would be a materially false statement if not on the questions regarding whether or not you're prohibited, pertaining to whether you're prohibited?
Your name, if you provided a different social security and tried to
beat the system that way.
Else, that's right. That would be materially false. But just saying that I haven't been convicted when I have, you're going to figure it out. That's not material.
Interesting, but as somebody who deals with these all the time, I think that the answer is maybe they'll figure it out, because you and I have dealt with multiple cases over the years where somebody calls us and says, I don't understand why I'm being denied. I've been buying guns for all these years and I never had a problem. So this must be wrong. And you look into their background like, shoot, this guy really is prohibited. And he's been slipping through the cracks for all these years. He's like, well, they can't put me in trouble for this because they've been approving it all this time. So no, it certainly can. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think we get those calls on a weekly basis. But nonetheless, doesn't change the argument. It was a good argument. I liked it. I gave it points for creativity.
Yeah, creative argument for sure. And there's one of the cases where I was cross-examining the FFL, and he was trying to get wise with me, not giving me the answers that I want. And Gilbert, you know how we do this, where we ask these short, specific questions where they can either give us the answer that we want, that's going to help us, or if they give us the answer we don't want, they just look like a moron. So this guy was trying to weasel out of all kinds of questions about how, he was adding in things about how he didn't think the form was confusing at all and everything like that. And so I figured out that he had actually put the wrong date on the 4473. So I started asking, you said that you executed this 4473 on behalf of your employees. Is that correct? Yes. And you would have filled out this block over here. Is that true? Yes. And is that your handwriting? Yes. Now, you said that this purported transaction took place in April. Isn't that true? Yes. Can you read me what you wrote over there? And he was like, no, I see what you get in that. And I said, no, please read it for everybody. And he says, it says August where it should say April. I said, did you provide false information on the 4473? And the prosecutor says, objection, Your Honor. And the judge was just laughing. He said, I don't know.
Materially false information, right?
It's materially false. It changed everything with the wrong date.
Oh, that's good.
That guy was not pleased. For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So what else? Before we get into record-keeping requirements, is there anything else that we ought to talk about that would impact people directly?
Sure. So with what is currently called an 80% lower receiver or an 80% firearm, what's going to happen in the future is those items that are currently sold as just blocks of plastic or blocks of metal, many of them are under the ATF's new totality analysis going to be required to be serialized. And furthermore, they've actually shifted the definitions of frame and receiver. And they did this for a good reason, because the current definition of frame or receiver doesn't accurately define many modern firearms with split frames or split receivers. Think of, a Glock or even an AR-15, because not only the lower or not only the upper houses all of the fire controls. And so they have made it clear with the new definitions that they are looking for that either the upper or the lower can be considered the firearm. They are also grandfathering in existing weapons classifications to avoid a situation where both the upper and the lower is considered a firearm on currently existing weapon designs.
Wasn't there a case where they found that neither one, or at least it looked like it was going to come out that neither one of them was a firearm? They totally dropped the prosecution to avoid that holding.
They did out in L.A.
Yeah.
There was a case involving, I believe, I want to say it was a convicted felon who was putting together ARs and having AR build parties. And ultimately, when they prosecuted him, they looked at the definitions, and the attorney realized, possibly through the help of experts, that, hey, these weapons don't actually meet the federal definitions. And that ended the prosecution.
Huh.
Totally wild.
Interesting. How about that?
So if people are interested in 80% receivers and everything, what would be your advice to them? You got somebody who's into braces maybe, and somebody's into what do you think that people should do in these situations with all this stuff coming down and all these shifts potentially taking place?
Yeah. So one of the big problems and one of the reasons that homemade firearms are being targeted is the Biden administration wants to create a de facto registry of firearms. And right now, we've got laws in place preventing an actual registry. And we also have the ability to make firearms at home. And you will still be able to make firearms at home. You will still be able to build your own firearms. It's just they're going to require serialization on many of the items that currently do not require serialization. We're going to have to see how this plays out. But I believe, based on the rule as written, I believe that there are still some items that we commonly see sold in gun stores as non-firearms because they have not yet met that stage of manufacture where they cross to becoming a firearm. I think some of them will still be able to be sold without serialization, so long as, and again, this comes back to the ATF sort of focus on making everything as complicated as possible and totality analysis, so long as they're not sold with jigs or other parts to complete them.
So, isn't there something else about if you turn an unserialized into for gunsmithing that they got to take it and serialize it?
That is correct. So if a FFL currently today, if an FFL comes into contact with a homemade firearm or an unserialized firearm, they can take it in. They can mark it in their acquisition book, in what they would call their bound book, as they're required to do so. They can mark it NSN, no serial number. And that's perfectly lawful. That's acceptable. Moving forwards, when an FFL acquires and has to bring onto their books a homemade firearm that doesn't have a serial number, they are going to have to put their own serial number on it in the future prior to entering it in their bound book. They're going to have to engrave it. Now, what this means is if you take a gun that you made at home to an FFL for repair, now we're worried about when does that gunsmith who's repairing the firearm have to enter that book, that firearm, that weapon onto his books. And currently the guideline is if the gun is going to leave the same day it came in, they do not have to enter it on their books. So the moral of the story for everyone is if you have a homemade firearm that doesn't have serial numbers and you don't want them to have serial numbers, but you're taking it to a gunsmith in the future, the gun needs to leave the same day it came in.
Wouldn't you be furious though? You show up and say, "What did you do?"
What did you do that for?
Right. Well, you know, it'll be interesting to see how they pick those serial numbers as well. So I can imagine some creative things get engraved on firearms in the future.
Go, Brandon.
How did they arrive at that
well,
conclusion, though? With
I was thinking
manufacturing, because you're not manufacturing anything.
Right. Well, I was thinking, you know, when we talk about what's engraved, I was thinking of some things that Russ probably won't let me say on air.
Oh, go ahead, Gilbert. We've had some other
let's
people.
Go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon would be a good one, right?
Right.
I'll take the Mike approach and just spell it.
Right.
Hey,
there you go. Yeah. LET''SGOBREN. That's funny. I have a question for Gilbert. You know, is there any like empirical data to show that there's an, you know, unusually large number of criminals taking their time to buy these guns and build them and then go out and commit crimes? It seems like there's a fairly large amount of illegal firearms available in the metropolitan area. So, like, is this really? I mean, obviously, there's probably not much to this, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that's really $1 million question, and this is one of the reasons I hate statistics, because I think statistics get manipulated. According to the Biden administration and their finding of fact and justifying this rule, they did cite a fairly large number. I think it was, you know, in the tens of thousands of weapons that they claim they've recovered at the scenes of crimes that were homemade, unserialized firearms. I think that there has, since that report, been a lot of pushback saying, whoa. You're including, for example, guns that were recovered that had the serial number filed off.
That's what I was going to ask.
Different.
Because you hear that story. Yeah, that's a different situation. Yeah.
And already a crime, right? It's already a crime.
Very much already a crime.
Right.
That makes more sense if they're including that. Now, what about people commonly get confused about some of the pre-68 guns that don't have serial numbers on it? Admittedly, I didn't read all 385 pages, was it? What came down? Did they address? Do you know if they addressed that at all?
I don't. I'm willing to speculate. I'm willing to speculate that they did not explicitly set aside new rules for pre-68 guns because that's going to become an issue on proving, when a particular firearm was made. And if they did not set aside specific rules for pre-68 firearms, then you're talking about a possible scenario where truly priceless guns are brought in for gunsmithing work and a serial number is slapped on them.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
That is absolutely
But again, this
wild.
is just me speculating because I, like Mike, do not have a perfect understanding yet of how these rules are going to be implemented, in part because right now we're reading plain language, and as we were discussing earlier, courts don't always follow the plain language. So we're going to have to see how cases come down and how legal decisions come back interpreting these new rules.
Randy says, I'm currently building an AR pistol and using a limited edition Angry Joe AR-14 lower receiver.
Yeah, there's been some good comments, actually. I was watching those.
Yeah. Anything come to mind? I'll let you read them, Philly Chris. I'll let you pick
There
out
was
your
one.
favorite.
Jeremy Miller said someone should figure out how to build a firearm out of mass so we can get those permanently banned. I like that one.
Now we're going to get kicked off.
Potatoes. Make them out of potatoes.
That's right. Yeah.
My bad.
Made out of potatoes. Just in case you were wondering, Gilbert.
Yeah.
They wear potatoes on your faces, and they want to make sure that you get your zucchini so you don't get sick with the turnip. Because if we use real words around here, we get kicked off.
Play games.
Of course.
But maybe we should put the show on Twitter now. Can we live stream on Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
We've
That's
been on
actually a
Twitter.
good idea.
Yeah.
Gilbert mentioned that earlier.
Guys, we've been
Yeah.
streaming. We've been multicasting to Twitter for I don't know, a couple months now.
Oh, we haven't gotten
Okay.
kicked off?
No.
Huh, okay.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's something else. You figured
Did our producer set that up? Who set that up?
I said that.
Oh, all right. Thanks, man.
Our alleged producer.
Yeah, our alleged producer, yeah. Slash engineer.
Allegedly.
Yeah. That's great.
Maybe Slick Willie did it, maybe. Who knows?
Does Slick Willie have to weigh in on anything?
No.
No.
All right, I'll give you time to go get him.
Yeah. We'll
So,
bring him on later.
and for those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. Gilbert, let's get into talking a little bit about the changes that FFLs could be seeing here pretty soon, as if it's not complicated enough, right? When we walk into a place, I mean, why don't we talk first a little bit about the process that we typically go through with FFLs, so that way people understand what goes into actually running a business where you're selling firearms. It's not like you decide one day, all right, I want to sell guns, and you set everything up overnight and you're good to go, right?
Sure. I mean, as you and I both know from multiple negative experiences over the years, we would much rather someone get us involved prior to having a problem with the ATF, because a lot of things I think we're able to head off if we get involved and we sort of are able to do a little analysis of their business practices and see how they're doing, what they're doing to spot problems. Where the problems come down is where we get the phone call after the ATF has been to visit and sent a warning or a revocation letter. And I will tell you, as I think every firearms attorney across the country is experiencing, this is part of what the Biden administration is doing that is not being publicly talked about so much, is they are really hammering FFLs. I mean, they are coming for every little violation and using it as a reason to revoke people's licenses.
There must be a lot of them retiring right now. Are people just closing up shop pretty much? Do you guys know any stats on that, Mike or Gilbert?
In fact, I think that we're seeing growth in FFLs right now because so many guns have been sold over the past several years.
That would make sense.
For good reason, right?
Yeah, right. That would make
reason,
sense.
I mean.
Yeah.
Gilbert, when we're talking about these violations, in years past, if somebody had something minor going on, they'd still be able to keep their doors open. Now it seems like they're dropping the hammer. Why don't you explain to people what happens with them 4473s?
So with the 4473s, there is record-keeping requirements for FFL. The 4473, of course, is the form. It's the federal form that you fill out when you purchase or attempt to purchase a firearm. And the record-keeping requirement currently has an FFL storing that form if the transaction is completed for 20 years. And after 20 years, the FFL could destroy the form. Interestingly enough, I believe it's only 5 years that they are required to store it if they attempted the transfer and the transfer didn't go through. But for those transfers that were completed, you keep it for 20 years. And this is a burdensome requirement for FFLs. You have to keep it organized in some type of searchable system, and you're keeping physical paper files. And you can imagine for big gun stores how those files pile up over the course of 20 years. I mean, gun stores have literal rooms devoted to storing these things. I have seen some gun stores go so far as to close their business and give up their FFL only to reorganize and reopen under a new FFL for the sole reason that they ran out of storage room and wanted to be able to turn in all of those old 4473s that were not yet 20 years old. If you go out of business, then you can hand them over and the ATF will gladly store them for you, as well as never destroy them, keep them as part of their database. And so the big change that has happened, and this is an important change because as we mentioned earlier, currently that we've got laws in place preventing a federal firearms registry outside of the registry for NFA items. But the Biden administration has now decided that FFLs need to keep those 4473s not just for 20 years, because in the past they could destroy them after 20 years, but they now need to keep them in perpetuity. They need to keep them forever.
Forever. It's like the Sandlot. Forever.
And so not only is this obviously burdensome for gun stores, but for you and I going in and buying a gun, we can't really predict what the laws might be in 25, 35, 45 years. But one thing I can predict is there are going to be politicians, if it has not already happened, there are going to be politicians pushing to digitalize and make all of those 4473s into a searchable database so that they can tell exactly who owns what.
What could possibly go wrong with that?
I'm sure it'll be fine. The government does everything so well, it'll be fine.
I don't think a lot of people realize, though, that the FFLs are housing these things in the first place. I think a lot of people mistakenly believe that when you go and you fill out a 4473, you're registering the firearm with the government, and then they've got that on file somewhere, don't you?
I agree with that because I hear people say that all the time, well, it's a registered gun. And frankly, if that's what people believe, I'm astounded that they are so comfortable with the government having a registry.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's very true. But we get those questions all the time. You know, I've got a gun and it's registered, or they'll bring it in from out of state and they want to register it, and it's like, there's no way to register it. No, there's no registration. I'm like, but I want to voluntarily. Okay. Give me $50. I'll write on a piece of paper with a crayon that your gun's now registered. There you go.
What a money-making scheme.
Yeah, there we go. Set it up. Get your firearm registration in Pennsylvania. Don't go to jail.
Right.
And I didn't say you would go to jail if you didn't get my registration. I just said you don't want to go to jail. That's all I said.
Can you pass go first?
I saw a meme recently talking about the serialization requirements. It was Spider-Man up on stage giving a speech, and he says, it's going to make it way worse if we put the same serial numbers on all the guns.
There's a solution.
Yeah.
8675309.
That's right.
That'll work too.
Yeah, I'll go with that one.
Oh, so anything else that pops out? I know those are the main ones. I wonder if anybody's who's listening to the live stream right now has any questions that you want to throw in. Feel free to go ahead. You can also call in if you're on the Thursday evening live stream. Call-in number here is 484-429-9110. That's 484-429-9110. Gilbert, you have another 10 or 15 minutes?
I do. And one of the things that's on my mind And it's one of the things that I truly adore about the firearms world is just how creative gun owners are about avoiding what the law wants them to do. And I mean this in the best way possible, because you're already seeing guys like Cody Wilson with Defense Distributed releasing the Ghost Gunner. I forget which model it is, but it makes what he calls 0% firearms, meaning he's milling guns from just a block of metal. And 3D printing. You know, they say 3D printing is going to be the way of the future. Because, as I said, as I already referenced, it's still totally legal. And I think this is a tacit acknowledgement from the ATF. They don't have the power to stop you from building a gun at home. They don't have the power to force you to serialize a gun that you just made at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so with every attempt to restrict freedom, people get more creative. And I'm not saying it's right that they are forced down these channels, but I appreciate their ingenuity.
That's a good point.
Do we have a caller on the line?
Yes.
You do.
Who do we got?
Can you hear me? Hey, my name's Tony. I'm answering the ad for the job for the producer position.
I was going to ask, what's on your mind, Tony?
It was on Craigslist. I saw it, and I think I have some pretty good skills. I'm very good at sleeping on the job.
I was going to say, Tony, one of the qualifications that if we start at 7, you have to be taking a nap until 7:15 p.m. Right?
Right.
Well, I do have some computer skills. But, you could maybe show me a couple things. I'm sure I could pick it up rather easily. I can hit buttons pretty well.
Tony, if you were in charge of setting up the link for the live stream and myself or Chris gave you a call and said, hey, it's a half hour before the program starts. We want to make sure that this gets promoted. Can you send us the link? What would your response be?
You'd probably have it by the time the call ended, actually.
Oh, really? Then you're totally unqualified. What we're used to around here. What we're used to around here is, all right, and then we never get it anyhow. So.
Oh, guys.
To his credit, though, he did a good job today.
He did a good job today.
I do have one thing that I think would be really great for the show. It's a great idea.
What's that, Tony?
Instead of 2-week-old news, we could do 2-year-old news.
Okay. That would be much more fascinating.
That might work, yeah.
Yeah, it would be great because we'd be into the pandemic right now, and we'd be talking about.
Yeah, that's true. We'd be
Yeah,
locking down. We'd be like, breaking news: Philly Chris has joined the Mike G in the Morning program as a regular co-host.
How about that? Wow.
How
long has it been?
Breaking 2 years ago. Tony, what do you think about the ATF?
I think that they are, good in some ways, but for the most part, they're.
Tony's being careful. He doesn't want guys in black suits showing up at the door, Gilbert. You might want to.
Right.
Yeah. You might want to make sure that Tony has our contact information.
You're on a payphone, right, Tony?
I wondered whether Tony had a current application out to the ATF as well.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Answering other Craigslist ads.
He's either going to be the producer of the Mike G in the Morning program or he's going to work for the ATF.
Right.
Those are his career prospects right now.
Yeah, similar qualifications. So,
what do you think? You think I could get the job? Because I've been out of work for a while.
Yeah.
I think I could be a much better producer, and like I said, I might fall asleep a little bit less, and I definitely don't have any fuzzy dinosaur slippers to wear to work.
Well, we'll have to get you those.
Those are a requirement.
Are you good at Tony?
Those
Are you
were
good at
issued
thinking
to
on
me.
your feet? And are you good at thinking on your feet and making things up as you go along? Because that's going to be required for the ATF.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at that. But, all
do you
right,
feel?
I'll just. You want me to email you my resume?
Sounds good, Tony.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your
right.
interest.
Take care. Thanks for calling.
Mhm.
All right.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. Interesting call there. Glad he called in. Like having
I didn't
people
expect
pop in.
to get a response to that ad I put out there that quick, but
Oh yeah, it's amazing. People are looking for that kind of work.
Do you get most of your applicants via phone? Is that a normal thing?
yeah, on the air. We have them.
Right.
We have them apply right on the air. So that way we can kind of test them out, right?
That's how on the fly everything is.
Yeah, it is a live show. We might as well have a live interview, right? Yeah.
Trial by fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's a great idea. I'd like to, for all of my new hires, I'd like to just direct them to your show and
have them call us.
Question them on. Yeah, that's right. You guys can question them online.
Yeah, we'll grill them. That would be great, right?
It's a good idea, actually.
Well, the bottom line is, if they're going to be ashamed to be on a program like this that discusses Second Amendment rights, then they don't belong at the office anyhow, right?
Good point.
That's very true.
That's always the tricky thing when you own a gun law firm, is if you put ads out there that specifically talk about what you do, you're bound to get a ton of hate mail and just waste a bunch of your time and deal with those kinds of people. On the other hand, if you make it somewhat vague and you don't specifically talk about what you do, you're going to get candidates that perhaps have no business even, applying, or you really can't consider them seriously because they don't line up with our values. Right. Maybe they're anti-gun or something like that, and it's just not going to be a fit. So that's always a challenge. Have you had that challenge, Gilbert?
To a certain extent, I've talked to you about this in the past. I do a lot of hiring from word of mouth, so I try to have a sense of who I'm interviewing already, and avoid those public ads and dealing with all of those problems.
Have you gotten any random hate mail lately?
I have not. I've been very fortunate in not getting random hate mail.
We'll send you some, don't worry.
Well, after being on the air with you guys,
yeah, absolutely, right. It's coming.
Get ready, the floodgates are going to open up now.
You basically signed up for random hate mail by joining us today.
We get hate mail for other shows, actually.
Yeah, we actually literally.
We have to call those people and put them on the air.
You have the wrong show, but you'd probably hate us too anyhow. So.
Right. We'll accept your hate. Don't worry.
My favorite hate mail is the stuff that comes in and it's like, I listened to all 3 hours of your program and it was terrible and I want to pull my hair out of my head and
I want my money back.
Right.
I listen every week and it's miserable.
I can't imagine how the 3 hours next week will be.
It's like who's holding you at gunpoint, making you listen to the Mike G in the Morning.
Right. Doing something right if our haters are listening, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, some people just love to hate,
They do.
And that's what we see with the people on the anti-gun side far too often. But, yeah, Gilbert, we didn't even get into talking about what we do. I know you said that we'd rather get to them early on so that they don't end up dealing with contentious proceedings with the ATF, because we've certainly dealt with some of those. And, sometimes we get involved fairly early on that end. And then other times we've been involved where it's like, okay, this is it. If this doesn't go right, these people are getting shut down. They're just so far along in the process. And we perhaps could have helped them somewhere early on. But, when we go in and somebody's opening up the business and we have to talk to them about putting together a handbook and stuff like that, why don't you talk a little bit about all of that stuff so people kind of get a sense of all that goes in on the front end?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many errors that can be made when doing what's called the Form 7. The Form 7 is the application to become an FFL. And people don't realize when they're doing those Form 7s that the choices they're making on that Form 7, on the initial application, are going to have effects on them years down the road, because the way your business is defined not only limits and depending on how you do it, the types of protections that you have, legal protections that you have against being sued, it also is going to, the choices you make on that initial application can affect even where the ATF is allowed to search down the road, what areas they are allowed to search. And when I say search, I mean, what I mean is, and what I'm referencing is an administrative inspection, a warrantless administrative inspection. And so it's important that people really consider this when they're doing the initial application. And frankly, this is one of the services that both Mike and I together collectively offer to people that are considering starting an FFL, is we should at least have a conversation and talk through some of these issues so that you don't make mistakes prior to even getting started, prior to opening your doors for the first day, that are going to affect you 3 years down the road.
And when we started putting together handbooks for these folks so that they can follow along and have these policies and procedures, all of the stuff that went into that and took us, takes us a long time to put these things together for these businesses, but they all stem from horror stories and basically helping other people learn from the mistakes of others who have had these issues where they've invested so much of their time and money into their business and they get shut down and it all gets taken away from them. And then we've also got things like audits that we'll do along with Rick Vasquez, who has been on this program before, right, Gilbert?
That's right. And Rick's a great resource to have and to have helping out because he knows the way the ATF is going to go in. He knows what they're looking for. But you're absolutely right. Those handbooks are critical as well, the education, because it's not just what we would call the responsible persons who need to make sure that the law is followed in a gun store. It's all the employees because there's vicarious liability. So the guy at the very, very bottom who just started yesterday doesn't know his way around a firearm, let alone federal regulations. He is responsible. If he's on the payroll, if he's working there, he is responsible for making sure that the law is followed. And if he messes up, that mess up is not owned by him alone. It is owned by the business because the ATF will come after the business, and that's coming after your livelihood.
Right.
I mean, it might be millions of dollars that are at stake because the guy who started yesterday did not have a good understanding, didn't have a good footing before he got started. And so a lot of what Mike and I do with the handbook is we try to provide the tools needed to train new employees to make sure they hit the ground with the knowledge they need to have to make sure that they're not going to make mistakes.
And we've had some pretty serious cases where an employee goes off and does something that's totally egregious and the owner was unaware of it. It causes tremendous problems.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, it can lead to criminal problems. It can lead to loss of your licensure. And of course, if you've got a big successful gun store, and you've spent thousands, if not millions of dollars building the brand, and then all of a sudden somebody does something totally unbeknownst to you, and it can cause you to lose your livelihood.
Mm-hmm. It's a huge risk compared to other businesses. It's pretty significant.
It is.
Yeah.
So somebody's sitting home and they've got their 80% low receiver, and they've got their AR pistol brace. They're looking at it right now and they're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? What do I do? What do you tell them, Gil?
Well, right now I would tell them not to panic because the pistol brace rule has not come down yet. So we don't yet know what that's going to look like in its final form. I'm suggesting what I think it's going to look like, but we don't know. We're just guessing right now till that actually comes down. As for the 80% stuff, you don't have to change anything. I mean, a lot of this stuff sounds scary, and you might want to start thinking about the ramifications if you're going to take the gun into a gun store to get worked on. But other than that, if you've already built it, nothing has changed. Now, if you're thinking about building 80% firearm and have not yet obtained the parts, now's your chance because this rule goes into effect in August, I believe. Although it has been published, there's a grace period before it actually goes into effect. And so you can still purchase parts. You can still essentially operate under the laws as they are today, not the laws as they will be.
Didn't make any reference to those who purchased the non-firearm but have not yet built the firearm. suppose that would still remain the same as building any other firearm. From he's not purchasing it
still
from
the
you at this
same.
point.
That's
As
right.
long as you've already got him, then just don't bring him to a gunsmith overnight after August, right?
That's right.
That's basically it. Oh, Gilbert, do you have anything else that you want to talk about before we let you go?
Firearms related or just anything?
Whatever is on your mind.
Yeah. What do you think of Elon Musk?
I have a Tesla. I'll tell you that, and I'm a car guy. I love cars. I've got a bunch of cars. My Tesla is not my favorite car. There's people that are absolutely obsessed with them. What I will tell you about the Tesla is I think for 99% of people, the Tesla is an incredible car. Because if you want a sort of do-it-all car, I mean, all-wheel drive, it's quick, it's sporty, it's comfortable, it's got tech. It's a pretty incredible car. Now,
do you remember the first time you drove it?
Well, I remember the first time my brother actually had a Tesla first.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Like the first time you hit the gas in one of those things. Yeah. Like, could you describe that for everybody?
Well, I mean, they're quick. They are very quick off the line. They will pin you back in the seat. As I just said, I like cars. I like fast cars. So I've had cars that are faster than the Tesla. But typically you're getting into pretty specialty stuff that you're not going to drive on a daily basis. Whereas the Tesla, that's something that you can drive it every single day. It's going to put the power down. You do not have to be a excellent driver to launch one of them because the computer's going to figure it out for you. You just put your foot to the floor and it goes.
Right.
Only practical problem, long trips if you got a time crunch?
Long trips. I mean, look, and you can plan this out too. You can stop and get yourself a bite to eat, use the bathroom, charge up for a little bit. So it is a pain. It's not great. If you have a time crunch, then yes, I would take something that's gas powered. Other than that, if you've got the time to plan the trip out, stop, get a bite to eat, charge up for a little bit. And I mean, I think they're great cars. They get, in certain circles, they get a bad rap because of the type of people that typically are out looking to buy an electric car. But I'll tell you, I don't think they deserve the bad rap. I think they're actually really, really good cars.
The drivers, you feel like they're doing the world a service by driving them around?
That's right. Those people give it a bad rap. And while I'm on the Tesla, up on the soapbox talking about Tesla, I'll tell you, one of my favorite things about the car is how frequently, if something does go wrong, because I put a lot of miles on mine, if something does go wrong, a lot of the times they can fix it over the air with a software update.
That's
you write them on you write them on the app. You say, "Hey, this stopped working," and when you come out to the car the next morning, it's working again. And even other problems that you might have, they typically use mobile service, so you don't have to take it to a Tesla dealership. You tell them, "Hey, it's going to be parked at work between 8:30 a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. on this date," and they'll schedule. You tell them where the car is, they'll come out, they'll work on it in the parking lot.
That's pretty cool. What is it like when you're on the highway and you put it in the self-drive mode and you can take a nap because you're working so long all the time?
Well, I'm not going to say anything that incriminates myself.
You're going to get fired by Tesla, even if you don't work there.
But the self-driving feature it does a great job on the highways. I've got a high degree of confidence in it on the highways. On back roads, not so much. Not so wonderful on back roads. But once you get onto the highway, I pretty much am happy to let the thing take over and drive for me.
That's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So, in summary, after my nice little talk about Teslas there, in summary, I think Elon Musk is a pretty smart guy, has some pretty cool products, and I am excited to see what he does for Twitter.
Yeah.
He did
say recently that he thinks that some conservatives will be let down and they won't be too happy with him either. So I don't know what that means as far as the regulations that they will have. But
I saw, and again, I think so much of the news, it's tough to know who wrote what, but I saw something that I think was attributed to Elon Musk, where he said, "Look, what I'm saying here is not that there should be no protections. I'm saying that the protections should be consistent with the law, And if you want more protections, then change the law. And I fully support that. I mean, that's the way I feel about the Second Amendment, right? I love the Second Amendment. I don't want you to change the Second Amendment, but it says shall not be infringed. And if you don't like what it says, there is, in our founders' infinite wisdom, they created a process to amend the Constitution. We have amended the Constitution before, right? Prohibition, then we got rid of prohibition. So it is possible. I don't want it to happen, but my stance is you can hate firearms and you should still agree with me, because the concept here is, and my stance on firearms, because the concept here is the law says what it says and we should follow the law.
Absolutely.
What
would you say to somebody who says that the right to bear arms is a God-given right, the government can't take it away from you?
Well, I totally agree that it's a God-given right to defend yourself. I don't know, because this is specifically a protection for firearms. I think that we could probably debate whether the right to self-defense, how far that extends as to what type of weapons you get to use to defend yourself. Arguably, I think the counterpoint there is you get to use the best weapon for the job.
Right.
But I would tell you, look, at the end of the day, the whole concept of the Constitution is not giving rights. I agree. This is a God-given right. This is guaranteeing the right against government infringement.
Protecting the government. Self-defense is interesting because somebody once described it to me. It's almost like bees have stingers. You know, we have the right to protect ourselves with our sidearms, just the way bees have stingers. I thought that was, I've only ever heard one person say that.
You could use a bag of bees instead.
The bag of bees. That's right. Gilbert, do you have yourself a bag of bees?
I know that they're available. I've heard of them. You told me about them. I still use a traditional firearm.
I think I heard that Biden's going after the bag of bees next, so you keep an eye on the new executive orders. Well, Gilbert, thank you so much for joining us on the program. You've been very generous with your time, and we look forward to have you back on the program again soon, maybe as all this develops and unravels, and we can have the pleasure of having you back on.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.
Take care.
Peace and love. For
those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. Do we have a caller on the line?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
What do we have?
2 week old news.
It's the 2 week old news.
We need a jingle.
Ladies and gentlemen, back by popular demand, we've got John with the 2 week old news.
Nice.
John, why don't you hit us with it?
Okay, here we go. For starters, President Trump is endorsing Dr. Oz for Senate.
Get out of here. Get out of town.
No way.
I'm still not happy about it, even though it's 2 weeks old. But
get out of town.
Yeah. His name is Mehmet Oz.
I believe that's right.
I guess that's how you say his name.
It is.
What are your thoughts
here's
on
something
him?
interesting. Here's something interesting. He'll be the first country's Muslim senator.
Dr. Oz is Muslim?
Is he?
I did not know that neither.
Is he?
I just found that out. He's Muslim.
Okay.
Where did you find that out?
Was that on the B website, the Bag of Bees website?
Yeah,
the Bag of Bees.
That's what it says on Wikipedia.
Huh. Although
Legend News celebrity surgeon Dr. Oz seeks to be first Muslim elected. Very interesting. I don't think he's going to win the primary, even with Trump's endorsement.
No.
I don't think it's going to happen.
We might have to talk about down the road who we're going to endorse.
Well, there are many concerns about his stance on the Second Amendment, things of that nature. I know that McCormick is going to be in Westchester on Saturday for an event.
Oh.
And so you got him. Who else running for Senate? Kathy, right?
Yeah,
Kathy running for Senate.
Barnett, right? Yeah, I like her.
Friend of the station.
Strong on Second Amendment.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
Yeah.
Should have her back on the program.
What are the most recent polls? Do we have anything on the most recent polls?
Let me take a look.
I'm 2 weeks behind, so I won't.
What were they 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
See over here if I go. We got. See if there's any numbers here.
Clear politics.
I honestly think he's endorsing him because of his clout.
That's what some people are saying. Yeah, I mean, he certainly has a big following.
The name recognition, yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of like Trump.
My mom used to watch his show on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's you're putting that in air quotes, right? It was your mom. Don't lie.
Hey, your mom watches Dr. Oz.
So what else you got? What else is 2 weeks old, John?
Oh, another endorsement. Trump endorses the author of a book called Hillbilly Elegy, J.D. Vance, for the Ohio Senate primary.
All right.
That might be new news too. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have enough I did hear about the Trump endorsing Oz a couple of weeks ago. I don't know that I know about this one.
Yeah.
Brian says he went to high school with Dave McCormick in Bloomsburg. True story. Marlene says Kathy Barnett. Oh, we certainly love Kathy.
Yep.
She's been on the program. Excellent. Yeah. Amazing story. Amazing story. What else we got, John?
Oh, here's something regarding sports. A $518,000 sale of Tom Brady's last touchdown football was voided after he, quote unquote, unretired. Basically, somebody bought his football from his last touchdown, and they auctioned it off, got it to $518,000, but now they're voiding it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. You know, he paid that kind of a price tag because the guy retires, and this is going to be the last touchdown of his career.
Right.
And then, what was it, not even a month later, he comes back and says, no thanks, I'm coming back. I wonder what that was all about. I still don't understand. And I was legitimately sad when he announced that he was retiring, because growing up, all you know is that this guy is the epitome of greatness. You know? Winning all these rings, always finding a way, no matter what. You know, just a real winner. And of
maybe
course,
it puts him in a better position to negotiate.
I think it stinks of a PR stunt.
But he
doesn't really need to be, I guess, right? Yeah.
I don't even know that he negotiated anything new, though.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And he's always been, somewhat selfless throughout his career, not going after as much money as he possibly can, so that way the team has enough money to build around him, and get him the pieces that he needs.
Pretty cool.
So, yeah. But he's back. That was a very strange situation. And then the coach retired right afterwards. So right after he comes back, the coach leaves.
Yeah.
and people were saying at first that, there must have been a rift between the two of them. And, when they agreed to get rid of the coach, or the coach agreed to step down, he said, okay, I'll come back. But they deny it publicly, and they say,
right,
they're totally cool.
You'll never know.
Never know.
Although in a few weeks, maybe it'll be 2-week-old news. Who knows?
He was a part of two of my favorite days when the Giants won the Super Bowl. He was on the losing end both times.
Oh, I remember. I even remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. It was the only game they lost that whole season, too. But apparently, it came out that they were deflating the football.
Yeah, allegedly. What else we got, John?
Oh, Philadelphia brings back the indoor potato mandate.
Well done. Well done. That's a good one. That's
back.
I wonder what they'll do in a few weeks.
I'm going to predict that it's only going to last like 5 days.
Right. Can we bet on that? Who wants to bet on that? Russ, you want to take a bet?
This attorney was telling me this story today. how he was in court with a colleague attorney, and they were sitting down on a bench talking together, and the guy says to my friend, he says, "Oh, I guess we probably shouldn't be sitting this close together. Neither one of them is wearing the potato." And he says, "We probably shouldn't be sitting this close together, because of the turnip, but you have the zucchini, right?" And my friend's like, "No, I don't have the zucchini." And the guy was like, "You don't have the zucchini?" And so my friend says, "No, but actually I actually took a test this morning and I was negative. I had to take a test for something with work and I was negative." And the attorney looked at him and he said, "But you don't have the zucchini?" And the guy is like, "What's wrong with you?" I just gave you definitive proof that I don't have the turnip.
Right.
And that like
good enough,
goes
Mike.
right over your head.
Not good enough.
Are you concerned about
Right.
whether I have the turnip? Because it seems that
right.
that's what you should be most concerned about, not whether I got the zucchini. Because I
Right.
could have the zucchini and still get you sick, right?
Interesting how
I could have a
convincing-
zucchini and a potato and still get you sick.
Mhm.
But if I don't have the turnip, I'm probably the only person in this building who could definitively say I don't have the turnip. Right?
What was the
Oh, it
attorney's
doesn't-
name? So we can
And my
avoid
brother,
it.
Or the other attorney at my office says when he hears the story, he goes, "That was kind of an intelligence test, wasn't it?"
Right. That's perfectly stated. Perfectly stated. Yeah.
Maybe you don't hire that guy.
Yeah. We should ask people that when they call in for the interview, for the producer position. Yeah.
That's bizarre. That's actually the second time that I heard of that happening, though, where somebody
Mhm.
who was either tested or willing to test,
Yeah.
and the other person was not down with it because they didn't have the zucchini. It's like,
Yeah. It's illogical, but that's where we are. There's so many illogical things going on. My stance on it. I'm quite open about it. Yeah. But this is how, pushing it so much in the media and here we are. Yep. Mm-hmm.
blows my mind.
Yeah.
What else is
blows mine
2-week
too.
old news, John?
Yeah.
We got the British Prime Minister was fined over the turn-up lockdown parties. Apparently, during the turn-up, he had a bunch of parties, and they actually fined the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and his finance minister, Rishi Sunak. And these parties were held at government offices while the rest of the country was observing a strict 2020 and 2021 turn-up lockdown.
Wow, that's actually just straight news for me. It's not because I didn't hear about it previously. Did you, Chris?
I heard a little bit about it, but not to that level of detail. But I saw something about it. Yeah. But it
That's
doesn't shock
interesting
me. They
because-
were all doing that.
Everything that John seems to tell us, either we laugh because like, oh yeah, everybody knows that it's funny that it's 2-week-old news, or it's like, wow, I actually didn't hear that.
Right.
There's a couple of
Yeah, it's
reasons,
one or
I
the
think.
other. Yeah, it's one or the other. Yeah.
I think the ones that are funny, it's like, wow, the news cycle works so fast that, yeah, I remember when
Right.
that happened.
Yeah.
But it feels like forever ago, even though it's just 2 weeks. But
The
because
news
of
cycle is crazy. Yeah.
24-hour news cycle, it feels like a long time ago, and I halfway forgot
Mhm.
about it by now. The other thing, when it's brand new news for us, even though it happened 2 weeks ago, I wonder whether some of these things is because the media is not reporting it very much. Remember, I mentioned something on the 2-week-old news to somebody. Oh, it was one of the other attorneys I work with. I was telling him today about how because he was asking how the 2-week-old news segment started. I guess he missed that episode.
Oh,
He was
okay.
like, I
Right.
love the 2-week-old news. He said, how did you guys,
Yeah.
what made you guys think of that? I said, well,
Mhm.
my buddy calls me during the show. And of course, only my family members and closest friends call me at 7 o'clock on Thursday. And they're like, hey,
Right.
I got to talk to you. I'm like, dude, 100,000 other people know exactly where I am right now. And for some reason,
only
some
been
reason
doing
you
it for
think
like
I'm
two
just
and a
sitting
half
around.
years.
Right, exactly.
Don't forget a
somebody
couple
called
years
me at
ago.
like 7:05. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said
Don't
to,
forget,
what's that?
don't forget, a couple years ago too, the Philly mayor got caught in another state during the turn up.
Oh yeah, that's true. But he was asking about how we got the 2-week-old news started, and I told him about how it started with John calling me about the Ohio constitutional carry, and he said, "You know what? I hadn't heard about that either. So even though it was 2-week-old news, it was just news." He said, "I wonder why that didn't get more coverage because I didn't hear about it either."
It's a good point. You'd think that's something you would have heard about too. You would think.
Yeah, I
you
don't-
know? Yeah.
Is it becoming at this point with the constitutional carry though? I'm sure the mainstream media isn't excited about it, but is it becoming almost like
It's not as big in news. You're right. How many states is it now?
right?
How many states is it? You know?
I think that it brings it
Getting
up
to
to
be more
25.
and more.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
think
really?
it's
Wow, that's
bringing
pretty
up to
wild.
25,
Wow.
25 or 26.
The only one state, Vermont, was like the very first, I think, constitutional carry state. But they were
25.
always constitutional carry.
Yeah, but I remember when it was, handful, this many states. Like, wow, could you imagine that? And even back then, people were like, oh, if they do that, then it's going to be all out, blood running through the streets and everything.
Of course it will be. Right, of course. Yeah.
And it's going to be chaos. And then at that point, you'd point to, hey, there's already 7 or 8 states that do that right now.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
guess what? Blood's actually not running through the streets. Responsible,
No.
And
law-abiding
if it
citizens
was,
are
we
still
would be hearing
responsible.
about it.
Right.
Right. But the responsible, law-abiding citizens are still responsible, law-abiding citizens. It's not making it so that way if you couldn't otherwise carry, now you can.
Yeah.
It's just
right.
if you can lawfully own and possess and meet the criteria, you don't have to go to the courthouse and get this piece of paper that says you're allowed to carry it on your person or in your vehicle or whatever the laws of that state say. And it's not like the gang members are sitting around saying, you know what, I can't wait till constitutional carry passes so that way I can carry a gun around.
Right. Finally,
Oh yeah, they
illegally
totally check the laws of the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What else you got for 2-week-old news, John?
Couple sad news. Well, I'm kind of glad this happened. New York police arrested the subway attack suspect, and he was from Philadelphia. Yep.
He was from Philadelphia.
Yep.
How about that?
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah, he actually rented the U-Haul truck that he was using in his crime from Philly.
What a crazy situation. What just like so messed up. It's like some real wacky stuff out there,
And then, of course, it was New York, so guess what? No legal concealed carry permits in New York. So
well, yeah, right. You bring up a good point. When you guys were talking about that a minute ago, it's like we all know generally where the blood is running in the streets is where there's the highest gun laws generally, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we see how that really
What
works.
else we got, John?
Sadly, comedian Gilbert Gottfried passed on at age 67.
I hate to laugh, but that's what he would have wanted.
He would have.
It's what he would
Yes,
have
he
wanted
would
us
have.
to laugh at his death being 2 weeks
I used to
old.
like his commercials, the free money for college. Remember those?
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, he used to be on these infomercials for the free money for college. He would be dressed in this dollar bill suit, jacket. And of course, I've seen him in a couple movies.
Yeah, he was great. It was great.
The funniest thing I've ever seen from him is back in the 80s when he used to impersonate Andrew Dice Clay. Him impersonating Andrew Dice Clay is absolutely hysterical. I wish we could play that on the air.
Yeah, you sent that to me recently off the air. That was good, Mike.
How
Thank you for
funny
sharing
was that?
Yeah. Could we play it on the air or no? Maybe not. Rogue Hour?
so.
We could. Oh, if it's on YouTube, right? Yeah, I don't know.
Probably get a strike.
Yeah.
Anything else, John, before we let you go?
We got Biden approval rating hits an all-time low.
That's
I
not
think
news
that's
at all. Is that 2-year-old news?
That's what I was gonna say. Going down
You don't say.
further and further since he's been in office.
Right.
Marlene,
Could they even get like
His approval rating hit the
give
negatives
Marlene a
this
hey
week.
now, Philly Chris.
hey now, Marlene.
Hey now. Who do we got on? Looks like we've got another caller on the line. Do we have
We got another caller?
Oh.
I think that's
Hello.
still.
Who's with us? Who do we
Who
have?
do we have?
Hi, this is Stephanie.
Stephanie?
Hello. Yeah.
Stephanie, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just laying in bed here looking at Craigslist, and I saw the producer ad. And
let's see if you're fit for the job, Stephanie.
Well, I'm very professional. I wear business attire, and I know everything there is to know about making things work properly.
You're totally unqualified. Yeah, Stephanie, but
You sound a little too experienced, Stephanie.
I'm sure you've got I'm sure you've got a bright future ahead of you, but this just isn't going to work. You're not going to be a good fit for this program.
Just kidding you, Mike. It's,
Oh, we got Tony.
Oh man.
Hey, Tony, that is great.
There we go.
I
Speaking
wanted to
of
call you
that,
and tell you something that I've been doing lately.
yeah, I
Pretty
was
cool.
going to mention that on
Pretending to
the
be a
show. Yeah, go
female.
ahead, Gary. Tell us what you got going on there.
So when I was a kid, my dad would take me to the cemeteries to visit our grandparents, and my dad was he was in the military back during the Korean conflict, so he would stop and show me all these different tombstones that were from like World War I and World War II. And, we'd talk about it and stuff. So I got real familiar with it. Anyhow, when my daughter got to the age where she could ride a bike with training wheels, I would take her through the cemetery because there was no traffic over there. And the two of us would look at stones and stuff like that. And I started noticing that a lot of these stones were really black. Like you couldn't even read them anymore. So I came up with this idea about cleaning gravestones. And, but it was a bigger idea. It was like a pressure washer system and all kinds of stuff like that. But long story short, I drive these two high school kids to school every day, and they told me that they need to get community service hours in. They had to get 10 hours each. And I said, well, what do you think about this idea? You want to help me clean stones, And I said, yeah, sure. So we went out and did a trial run. We took scrub brushes and water, and we started focusing on specifically veteran stones. And so every weekend now, we've been going down to the cemetery and cleaning one or two veteran stones and taking them from black to bright white.
That's
And
amazing.
you can see that. Yeah, it's been pretty cool. And we set up a Facebook page.
You did. What's it
titled
called?
Veterans. It's called Veteran Stones, and you can see some of the pictures of the stones we did. So
We should
if
push
anybody
that
wants
out.
to check it
Can
out.
we share, Liberty? Can we figure out a way to share that on our page so our listeners can know about that? Can you guys use any help or anything like that? If somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, I'd like to volunteer to go down and give them a hand," can you
they
find
can
something
just
to do?
reach
Put them
out.
to work.
The phone number's on the Facebook page. Ultimately, we would love to get like a mobile pressure washer or something like that. But right now, we're doing it by hand. We're using scrub brushes and soap, and I fill up a 5-gallon jug of water, take that with us. Bleach works well. Kills a lot of the mold.
Maybe we could start some kind of a fundraiser campaign to try to get that.
I do have
person.
a GoFundMe. It's on that Facebook page.
We'll share
And
that.
we've had a couple donations and stuff like that. But I mean, that's not why I was telling you about it. I just wanted to tell you about it because I thought it was something interesting, and you might be interested in knowing that there's people out there who are still thinking about these guys that were in World War I and World War II.
Absolutely.
We can't forget them. There's
Not at
important
all.
history
That's
there.
very admirable that you're going out there and doing that. And I know that you weren't soliciting donations or anything like that, but I think that a lot of our listeners would certainly be interested in, contributing if they can. So that would be a very, very good cause.
It'd be appreciative, and some of the stones in this particular cemetery, and we just started with the first cemetery, so this may expand to other cemeteries, but some of the stones, you can't even read the names. So I've been doing a little bit of research, and I found out that through the VA, you can apply to get brand new stones made. So we may come across that. And I'm kind of looking for possible corporate sponsors to get, like 100 flags donated so we can put them next to the stones. You know what I mean?
That's pretty cool. Veteran Stones?
Yeah, it's called Veteran Stones.
Let me
and
see
there's
if
pictures
I can
of
find this group over here and try to get it posted out. Veteran Stones, because people are asking in the comments, what's it called? Do you still have access to the comments?
Let me see. I could probably get back on there.
Yeah, at some point, if you can pop that in there, since just because people are asking for it, I don't know if anybody else has access to it, whether it's Chris or Liberty, anybody, or Rusty. But that's very cool stuff. Well, we do appreciate you popping on with us to tell us about that. And, we're looking forward to an update, and hopefully we get people helping you out. Thanks so much for that.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me. And you want to talk to Stephanie again?
Get her back on so I can fire her personally.
Hi, Mike. It's Stephanie again.
And Stephanie, I'll tell you what, you're not going to be a good fit. This ain't going to work out. You're fired.
Well,
I'll go get a bowl of mustard.
I still want to say mega mustard.
There you go. Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. Have a good one, Mike. Great show tonight.
Take care. Thank you.
Peace out. Peace out, man.
Those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. I think we lost John with the 2-week-old news. Chris, I had one heck of a dream the other night. I got to tell you about this.
Oh, yeah? I got to hear all about it. Tell me about it.
So, you know that I'm a fan of the Beatles and like their music, like John Lennon's music.
Who's that?
That's right. That guy.
Who's John Lennon? Is that one of your old fart musics?
That you were telling me about that documentary. I think you mentioned it on the air before, right?
That's there's that documentary. So the other night I had this dream that I'm sitting there right where we do the jam sessions, and I'm sitting at a chair, kind of where I usually stand to play, and John Lennon is sitting behind the keyboard, and he looks kind of the way he did before he died.
Okay.
Just he had the short reddish looking hair on his album cover,
right?
Jeans and a t-shirt, and he's just sitting behind the keyboard, and we were talking, and he said to me, which one of my solo songs do you like? What solo songs of mine do you like? And I said, well, I love so many of them. I mean, they're amazing. I love all of them, but
right.
If you're really forcing me to pick right now, which ones are really my favorites?
Yeah,
I like Jealous Guy, and I like Watching the Wheels. I mean, those are the ones that really hit me when I listen to them. Though I love them all. He goes,
sure.
He goes, really? Then check this out. You're gonna love this one.
Oh yeah.
And he goes to start playing, and I woke up.
Oh no way, man. No way.
Immediately.
Oh, that's the worst.
I shut my eyes as tight as I could to try to get back to sleep and hear this original John Lennon song that nobody's ever heard before. And no matter what I did, I could not get back to sleep.
Oh, that's the worst.
Rough.
To get John Lennon back.
So, that sucks. I'm
just
sorry.
Gonzo, like that. He was about to play me an original song that nobody's ever heard before.
And then you could have played it for us, too. You could have played it for us.
I would have remembered it.
Yeah.
Well, that's how the song Hungry that's in that video that I recorded with Ralph. I got that way I wrote that song was I had a dream of that song. I woke up and played it real quick and did
no way.
demo
Really?
recording so I wouldn't forget it. That's happened.
I've heard of stories like that. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Come to you in a dream. John Lennon song.
Well, maybe it'll happen. You'll have another dream, and then somehow it'll get complete.
I gotta just surround myself with Lennon before I go to bed, so he's on the brain.
Well, there's that. You ever hear lucid dreaming? Are you familiar with that, lucid dreaming?
This dude at the cigar shop was telling me about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't.
I've had some lucid dreams. I learned about it in a psychology course in high school, I believe. And if you write something on your hand, did he talk about that part at all?
No, what he was saying was that with lucid dreaming, if you go to sleep
you can take control of it,
and you realize that you're dreaming,
right,
then you can do whatever it is that you want. Now, what I explained to him was that when I was a kid, at some point, I figured out how to recognize that it was a dream. So I had real bad nightmares as a kid, and then at some point, I learned how to recognize, okay, this is not real. This is a dream. And if I went 1, 2, 3, and I could wake myself up out of the dream.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right.
There's no place
he
like
said,
home.
He said with lucid dreaming, dreaming, you can do whatever you want once you're in that spot. He said, so if you're being, eaten by the dinosaur and you want to wake up, well, instead, you can pick up the dinosaur and spin him around on your head and throw him 1,000 feet and hit him with lightning bolts and stuff like that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, the thing.
To date, I has only been able to. I tried to do that before, where you try to go to sleep and dream about something in particular. He was saying sometimes how you'll give yourself an indicator.
Yeah, you write something on your hand.
He said you go to turn a light on or something like that.
Yeah. Well, one of the methods that I was getting into at the beginning there that I learned about when I learned about these things is you can write something on your hand before you go to sleep, like maybe like a question mark, or I don't know, you could write, John Lennon on your hand, and then in the dream you look at your hand, and then you realize you're in the dream because you won't see it.
Wouldn't you also realize?
And then you can take control of the dream.
Oh, but you have to remember in the dream that you wrote it down.
Right. So like in your dream, you'll look at your hand and it won't be there. In real life, it's there, so you've entered. You're actually in a dream. So, I challenge everybody.
But you've done it before, have you?
Chris, have you done this?
In your dreams?
I have. I've had some success with it. Every now and then, I'll still have one, and I don't, I haven't had like hundreds and hundreds of them, but I've had multiple lucid dreams, and they're pretty wild because it's like an adventure that you can take control of. It's a different level of consciousness, I believe.
Have you ever done things try to be productive in your dreams?
Yeah, actually, I have. And there's certain meditative states that I've taken advantage of, from some martial arts stuff I learned where you can get into those deep, like theta and beta waves and things like that, where you're entering different.
When I was in law school preparing for final exams, or sometimes when we're working heavy into a serious case,
sure,
I'll go to sleep and I'll be running through everything in my head. And, whether it was the final, it's like I see this question, this final exam question, and I'm running through it in my sleep.
Right.
Or I've done that with like serious cases where I've got complicated arguments where, the judge is asking me the question and I'm running through all the different things about the legal argument. I did have that happen one time. Gilbert, it's funny that he was just on with us. He and I were working on, I think it was waivers for a gun range or something like that.
Okay.
And we really, really tear these things apart.
Sure.
Maybe it was policies for a gun store. I can't remember exactly what it was right now. But there was something that we were working on for a while. And in my dream, I thought of some like really, really unique provision that I thought had to be in there. And thought of a reason why it would be helpful and why we needed it in there and why we needed to start adding that. And I was on the phone with him the next day and it's like, oh yeah, I had to tell you something. He said, there's this other provision that I think we want to throw in there. And he's like, yeah, what? I told him and he said, how'd you think of that? And I said, oh, this is going to sound nuts. I had a dream about it. I had a dream about it, so let's throw it in there. And he agreed. He was like, "Wow, that's pretty brilliant." I'm glad you thought of that.
Nikola Tesla actually used to talk about this, and many of his inventions came to him.
In dreams?
Yeah, in dreams, and also other states of consciousness where he would tune in. The 369 reference I make in some of the videos.
Wait, I don't
stuff.
like this stuff. It reminds me of that movie with Tom. Wait, is it Tom Cruise? There's a movie that I watched. It's all about lucid dreams.
What was the name of the movie?
No. She's talking about Vanilla Sky.
Oh, Vanilla Sky.
Vanilla Sky,
Okay,
and that scared me. I would not mess with that stuff.
That's not a lucid dream. That's like they put you in this lab because you're about to be dead, and they just
Vanilla Sky.
It's not a lucid dream.
I'm going to look up the definition of lucid dream just to see what it says.
I do remember that the one time I actually felt like I had a handle on it. I was about
This is a perfect definition. Go ahead, Mike.
I was about to take possession of like millions of dollars. Like I had the lottery ticket or something like that.
Right.
And Manny McMahon shows up. And
he ruins everything, doesn't he?
He ruins everything.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like I got this lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could predict what would happen if Manny McMahon showed up and I had a lottery ticket, what would you predict would happen?
I don't know. Somehow you'd knock it out of your hand and it would fly away and you'd be running and chasing it.
It said
go into the ocean.
Knocked it into a candle in the dream and it burned up and it was no more.
Right.
And so I flipped out. I drag him by his collar and I drag him out my front door and I'm giving him a beating. And the police are like there for some reason. They're looking at me as I'm like in the beating. I look up and I'm like holding him. I'm like, he just burned up my lottery ticket. And they go, we didn't see anything. And they like turn their backs.
Yeah.
And then he got away.
You sure it was a dream?
Got away.
Yeah.
And then somehow the lottery ticket showed back up, but like you said, it was like flying away and I couldn't get it.
Oh, okay.
And then I realized it was a dream, and I was like, let me see if I could get this lottery ticket back.
Right.
And I like tried to use the force to get back the lottery ticket.
Okay.
And it was just like hopeless. It didn't come back, and I was just dejected. But then at that point, it was kind of ruined because I knew it was a dream. And
yeah, right. Dreams are pretty wild, though.
But it didn't work. I wasn't able to get the lottery ticket back using my special lucid dream powers.
We'll have to work on this, Mike.
Yeah. But they claim that if you are aware, then you can make literally anything happen.
Yeah.
So why wasn't I able to get the damn lottery ticket back?
Maybe because you knew you were trying hard to do it, and like there was like a deeper meaning in it flying away, and you not being able to get it. Possibly something along.
Running in a dream feels way different. Also,
running, yeah,
that's true. Or sometimes you like can't move, like where you can't move.
We ever have the one where you're in a gunfight and you can't squeeze the trigger no matter how hard you try?
I haven't had that, but that's interesting. That's sort of like I have had situations where like I was in some sort of conflict and you're like frozen. You can't. Like your body is just
you can't fight, right?
Yeah, right.
You used to have the ones where you're punching somebody as hard as you can and like nothing's happening.
Yeah, like the rules of physics change.
No matter what you do. Yeah, John's right about running. Or you're yelling, you're trying to yell to somebody.
Yeah, and you can't yell. Yeah, I've had that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
I hope everybody in our audience has these dreams too, because we look like a bunch of nutcocks right now, right?
Right.
I think
on there. Have you had any of these wacky dreams before?
Yeah, let us know. Yeah, I did look up the definition, and it says here: lucid dream, a dream in which one is conscious that one is dreaming as the dream is occurring. A dream in which one is conscious.
But are you
one
supposed to be able to control the circumstances and control the forces around you? Because this guy was telling me you can fly, you could do all.
Yeah,
do whatever you want.
I'm so into like flying. As you know, when I was younger, I had a little experience with that, and I always wanted to know what it would be like to be a bird. So in some lucid dreams, I've had that experience, and it's pretty cool.
Did you poop on a statue?
Wow, it looks
I did poop on Biden the other day. That was me. Yeah, that was my lucid dream.
Somebody said no. I wonder who doesn't have these kinds of
Chris,
dreams.
what
Probably
was
some
the
liar.
purpose in that psychology class to do that? Like, is there any purpose of it?
Well, actually, it's been a long time since I've read about the topic, but if I recall, is that it does, number one, it can be a very interesting and expansive experience because you're kind of at a different level of consciousness while you're in that dream state. But also there are folks who tap into that, like Nikola Tesla and others who have been able to use it in very productive ways, like what Mike was saying, where you can do very advanced,
So with this wacky dream conversation, do we have Charlie Giroux for governor getting on the phone any minute now? He's gonna be like, well, what did I agree to?
Yeah, we'll see if he shows up now, right?
Gee, Mike,
are we
I can't
supposed to call him
make
at
it.
8:45? How are we working?
Actually, I didn't. The gentleman that I scheduled everything with there, his campaign manager, basically was saying he would most likely call in. He was leaving an event, so somewhere around this time they'll probably be calling in. Yeah,
it's Charlie Giroux.
We've got
there we
Charlie
go.
with us. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us.
How are you?
All right. We are on the air.
Welcome to the program.
We'll throw you right in. They'll
Great
edit
to be
all
on
this
with
out
you.
tomorrow. They'll
Right.
get you on. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got potentially the next governor of Pennsylvania, Charlie Giroux, on with us. He's a friend of the program, been on with us before. He has been dubbed the most influential man in Pennsylvania politics and has been extremely influential in serving our conservative values here in Pennsylvania for decades. Charlie, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's great to be with you. That's an awfully kind introduction. I don't know about the most influential guy in the world.
Charlie, I'm not. Those are not my. I can't take credit for those words.
It's not my opinion.
Is that what my mom told you?
I know your mom's a gun gal. She and I are friends. You didn't know that.
Yeah, she is a gun gal. Absolutely.
We go hang out at Harrisburg Hunters and Anglers every so often.
That is fantastic.
So, how's the campaign trail been treating you, Charlie?
The campaign trail has been great. The thing that is the best about the campaign trail is the opportunity to talk to so many of our friends and neighbors across the state who agree with us that our country is really in a battle for its heart and soul, and that we have to win that fight and take back our government from Tom Wolf and Josh Shapiro and the people that have handed us the big government, big spending, overtaxing, arbitrary and capricious mandates, edicts, et cetera, that they've handed down, and bring back individual liberty, personal freedom, hope, and economic growth and opportunity for every Pennsylvanian, because that's what people want.
So Charlie, I understand that you saw Philly Chris over at the leadership conference, and I understand you were instrumental in founding that. Is that true?
I was one of the founders of the Leadership Conference. Very proud of that. Some 30 plus years ago, we looked around and saw that there was no real conservative direction in Pennsylvania. And so we put together the Leadership Conference. It started out big. I mean, it's been, a big conference through the years. And we're very proud of the fact that I helped to give birth to that enterprise.
And when you started that, did you have any inkling that this country would look the way it does today? And I feel like things were a little bit different maybe 4 years ago, or even a couple of years ago when Trump was still president, when you and I spoke last.
I had no idea that we'd be confronted with the woke culture, that we'd be having critical race theory forced down our kids' throats, that the 1619 movement would be telling us that America is a racist, misogynist, colonizing bunch of bums, and that boys should be playing girls' sports. I really would have turned over and wondered what the heck was going on and what people were talking about. But that's where we are.
Pretty wild ride.
It sure is. So what made you decide to run? Because I kind of see you as similar to in Trump's category. You're not somebody who needs this. You've been so successful over all these years, and you decide to get out there and take on this kind of a challenge. What drove you to go ahead and do that?
Well, two things. One, as I said, I'm running because I saw where our country was and realized that the battle lines come right through Pennsylvania this year, because we have a real opportunity to turn away from what Josh Shapiro and Tom Wolf have done to Pennsylvania and restore the freedoms and liberties of every Pennsylvanian, get back to economic growth and opportunity for everybody. But the real catalyst was the dean of our congressional delegation, G.T. Thompson, giving me a call and saying, Charlie, look, we've got all these Republicans running for governor. I'm not convinced that any of them can beat Josh Shapiro, but I am convinced that you can beat him. So will you run? I don't even think he put it that way. I think he said, you are running. I told him that after the phone went silent for a couple of minutes, I told him that I would think about it, I would pray about it, and I would make sure that it was the right thing to do. And when I announced my candidacy, I was convinced that it was. And for the past year, I've been running as hard as anybody humanly can.
Is that how you typically make important decisions like that? You think about it, you pray about it, and then come to a conclusion?
I think about it, I pray about it, I talk with my family about it, I talk with my partners about it, and then you draw a conclusion. And, you know, as the good book says, once you set your hand to the plow, you don't look back.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the kind of leadership we need in Pennsylvania right now. Somebody who's thoughtful and somebody who's a praying man. And maybe that could restore the ways of Pennsylvania. This is the birthplace of liberty, for crying out loud. And look what we've got going on.
Wow. That's exactly it. It's the cradle of liberty and the birthplace of our republic. And today it's a nightmare for so many people for so many reasons, because of the really wokish, leftist, far to the left progressivism of Tom Wolf and Josh Shapiro.
You know, a lot of our listeners, Charlie, are obviously Second Amendment supporters, and they're very concerned about their Second Amendment rights. One thing that we have seen from this administration is that although the legislature has pushed through some bills that are pro-Second Amendment, they've always been vetoed by the governor. Would you expect that if you were to become Pennsylvania's new governor, you'd be able to get these bills on your desk?
You bet. And if they came to my desk, they'd be signed, not vetoed. I mean, Tom Wolf has vetoed legislation that's come to him time and time and time again, which what he's really saying is that I don't like what the people's representatives have done. I, one person, want to cancel out what the elected representatives of the Pennsylvania people have done. And there's something terribly wrong with that on a whole lot of levels and on a whole lot of issues. But I'm not only a Second Amendment supporter, I'm a supporter of the Pennsylvania Constitution, which in Article 1, Section 21 says that the right to bear arms shall not be questioned. That's going even further than the United States Constitution goes. I think we all need to remember that as Pennsylvanians. Our constitutional rights here as citizens of this great Commonwealth are even stronger than they are under the United States Constitution.
Yeah, that's a great point, because they really phrased it much better than the Second Amendment.
Don't even ask about it.
I love it. That's excellent.
Yeah.
That is excellent.
Thank you.
And very concise. You hit on all the points, and it's unapologetic, because, like I said, you get a lot of politicians, particularly on the Republican side, it drives people nuts, where they get wishy-washy on certain issues because they're afraid to offend people that are never going to vote for them anyhow, right?
Exactly. No, you've got to stand for principle. And, our parents used to tell us, if you don't stand up for what's right, you'll fall for anything. And so I'm willing to stand up for what's right, to fight for freedom, to fight for individual liberty. And I've always been willing to do that. And, I've got a long record of service to our country, from working with Ronald Reagan for so many years to being vice chairman of CPAC today. I've proven my credentials as a solid, sensible conservative.
What do you think about taxes? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm proud to be one of only 2 Pennsylvanians to ever receive a lifetime award from Citizens Against Higher Taxes, because I've been fighting against higher taxes since I was a kid. Because I realize that if you tax something, you get less of it. And what do we tax? We tax hard work, we tax productivity, we tax incentive, we tax growth, we tax savings, we tax investment. And as a result, we don't get as much. I think it's a much better world when individual families and individual people are allowed to keep more of what they earn and decide for themselves how those hard-earned dollars are spent.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got, I noticed also that they mentioned being pro-life in the ad. We've got Marlene Downing, who's commenting in on our board over here. She's piping in on the comments, listening as we have our discussion. She used to be with the Hope Pregnancy Center, and now she's with the Susan B. Anthony List. So very actively involved in the pro-life movement. Did that have to do with your upbringing, how you reached that stance?
Well, it does. There are several reasons why I'm so passionately pro-life. First of all, I'm a Christian, and I know that we are made in the image of God. And so if we are truly made in the image of God, we have to protect human life at all stages, from conception to natural death. The dirty little secret is I'm also a lawyer, and I know that Roe versus Wade is fundamentally bad law. It is, as Justice Rehnquist said, pardon me, a raw exercise in judicial power. And as medical science advances, the whole idea of viability outside the womb becomes somewhat obsolete because every day it's pushed further and further back in the gestation period. And finally, yes, my roots as an adopted child make it a very personal and emotional issue for me. I'm so glad and so blessed that my birth mother, pardon me, decided to do the right thing. And so I cringe and deeply upset when young women make the wrong decision.
So sad. And, we've got a Supreme Court in Pennsylvania right now where the political makeup isn't what it used to be. I think it's interesting when you have things that change so dramatically based upon court decisions. Legislatures go in and write the laws to whatever degree, and you have the courts, they interpret the meaning out of them sometimes, and you end up with a completely different result. I mean, even looking like you're saying about Roe versus Wade, for them to read that into the Constitution and just insert it in there, yet you have such a hard time with the Second Amendment, which looks pretty clear.
Right.
It's laid out, but that doesn't get any love. So what do you think that as governor, we can do about that in the executive branch?
Well, the courts have overstepped their authority a lot in Pennsylvania, as you know. They did it with reapportionment. They're now trying to do it with abortion, presumably finding some constitutional right to abortion in the Pennsylvania Constitution. So the only thing that we can do is pass specific constitutional amendments that the court can't then overrule, that are as plain as day. And we may have to do that. I hope we don't. I don't want to get there. But if we do, we'll take those steps and we'll make sure that the sanctity of life is protected.
And if you've got a Republican legislature, you're confident that you can be that strong leader that they need to move forward and make these things happen?
I am. And, the thing that I have as a ability is the ability to work with some of these people. Simply going in and bashing heads with them every day is not going to advance the cause of conservatism in this state. And a couple of candidates, all they want to do is tell you how awful the legislature is. Well, you get elected governor, what are you going to do with those people that you've been telling every day are bums? You're going to have to realize, if you're governor, that you have to work with the General Assembly to get anything done, whether you like it or not. You've got to work with that. And I've got the ability to do that.
That would be something, showing up for work the next day and be like, oh, hey, guys, I didn't mean any of that.
Hey, you bunch of bums.
Elephants have long memories,
Right.
That's right. Well, Charlie, we certainly don't want to be a pig with your time. You've been so generous for joining us on the program. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell our audience?
Well, two quick things. Actually, three. First of all, a lot of folks don't know when they hear Gerow how it's spelled, but it's Gerow, Gerow. And if folks would like to know more, Charlie for FOR governor.com, charlieforgovernor.com. And if anybody wants to chat with me, ask me anything, suggest something to me, tell me about something, my personal cell number is 717-877-8194, 717-877-8194, and you guys are welcome to put it out on the air anytime you want.
That is amazing. That's
pretty
something
awesome.
that I've never
Yeah,
heard.
I was just thinking that.
Have you been absolutely getting blown up with? Have you ever done this before?
Well,
or is
you
this
know, it's funny.
exclusive?
You know, people say no statewide candidate has ever done that. Nobody in their right mind would do that. Well, that may be true, by the way.
Well, you're
but
on the right show then.
I've gotten a lot of calls, and I have not yet gotten one that was disrespectful. I had a woman call me. She was an gynecologist who worked for Planned Parenthood. So you can imagine the flavor of the conversation.
Sure.
She obviously didn't agree with me at all, but she was respectful. She was straightforward. She gave me a piece of her mind. We talked for a few minutes, and I concluded the conversation by asking her a very important question. I said, can we agree that the unborn baby is a human being? And she thought for a minute, which I thought was very interesting. I thought she was going to come back with some mealy-mouthed answer, and finally she said, yes, we can. And I said, then we have something to talk about.
That's good. That's really good.
She just happens to enjoy killing human beings, I
Right,
guess,
right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that after we got off the phone that she really began to understand the drama of what she had just said and the full weight and meaning of what she said. But, you know, I try not to bash people over the heads for their misguided beliefs, but rather to pray for them, to work with them, and to, you know, maybe help them along the way to see the light. But she was respectful. And even if she had ended the conversation saying, no, I think you're a dope, I would have at least respected the fact that she called me and engaged in a thoughtful conversation for a few minutes.
Right.
That is pretty
That's amazing.
I guess,
You have my vote.
Liberty's going to do women for Giroux, right?
Right. There you go.
There you go.
I had a question for Charlie before you go, if you don't mind. You know, one of the more touching things I read about your story is, you know, when your mother was confronted with giving you up for adoption, she was living in the slums of Brazil, correct?
Yes.
And I just, you know, as a parent, I can't imagine being confronted with that. And it's pretty amazing that she put, you know, you before her, you know, and being there and did what she thought at the time was best for you. And obviously it's given you some amazing opportunity. But, you know, and I love Philadelphia so much, and where I'm going with this question is I have been through Kensington, for example, and I see the horror that's going on over in there with the, you know, the drug use and the fentanyl, and what I see is a systemic drug problem. You know, and all the stuff coming across the border and what it's not only doing to Philadelphia and our great state, but across the country. And what are your thoughts on that as governor? What can we do to fix that? I just don't understand why it's still such a
right. Well, when I was a kid, K&A was a very, very tough neighborhood, and I understand today it's even worse. Although I also understand that some of those river wards are seeing a lot of regentrification, which is really good and really positive. But my view is that we need to get more police on the streets of Philadelphia. Uniformed officers, because that will help to control all forms of crime, but especially violent crime. And I've got a plan that we're working on to put 1,000 police officers on the streets of Philadelphia. We've got to figure out a way to do that without running it through Jim Kenney, because frankly, I don't trust him. And, you know, he and Larry Krasner have been a disgrace. They've allowed crime to run rampant in Philadelphia. Public safety is the top priority of any governor. Protecting our lives and protecting our rights is what a governor has to have as agenda item number one. So I want to see more police officers on the streets of Philadelphia. I want to see respect for the men and women in blue rather than the degradation of them. And I want to see a safe street and safe homes, not only in Philadelphia, but in every other corner of the Commonwealth.
Excellent. Thank you. Great answer. Thank you.
Well, Charlie, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If they want to get on this mailing list that I received that commercial for this morning, is that Charlie for Governor?
Yes. Send us a note. We'd be glad to put you on. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, check him out, Charlie Giroux. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Peace and love.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. Really cool of him to join us and be so generous with his time. You got to imagine I'm sure he's exhausted at this point. He's been
I almost asked him like what it's like. I wonder what it's like to be running for that office. I mean, you just must be on the go constantly. And great conversation. Good questions, Mike.
Yeah.
By the way.
Thank you.
I like his down to earth. I always just, for some reason, it's the reason I voted for Trump, but I like his down to earth. Like, you bet, you know, and go
really
right
cool
forward.
guy. Yeah. He doesn't sound like a robot. You know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
I had a chance to talk to him briefly up at the conference. Yeah, he just seemed very real. Sometimes you can just tell. Like,
politicians look like a game show host.
Right. Right.
All
I
their
can't stand those guys.
Yeah.
properly. He sounds like a real guy, you know.
I remember
So-
thinking that about Mitt Romney when he was in the primaries. Like, this guy looks like a game show host. Like, this is really like this is the best we've got to offer. Really,
Right,
come on,
exactly.
who can relate to this guy? Seriously,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
you know.
Yep.
And, you know,
and he's
never
got
mind
a
his
awesome
policies.
that story too, you know. I mean, what a story that he has for his
Yeah.
upbringing, you know.
Yeah,
Everything
no,
that
that's-
happened.
Yeah. I just
feel,
can't
man. He's
been
imagine.
through
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
success. You know,
Mhm.
the amount of success that he's had in his career.
Yeah, that was a great interview.
Yeah, it was really good.
That,
Mike.
that he took the time to join us. I got
Yeah.
text from the other half of the Justice Brothers saying there's we want the Justice Brothers chant for Mike G in the morning. So pretty much the Justice Brothers.
We want the Justice Brothers.
Have
we
you
want them
invited him
now.
on recently?
You know, I think last week he was tied up teaching a seminar for U.S. Law Shield. This week
Oh.
I had Gilbert and Charlie set up. He's welcome. He's open invitation, almost like a regular. So
Did we write that number down? Did you write that down, Russ? I guess we know we're right around like the 2-hour mark, so we'll have to get his
I think
number
we
there.
can go probably to his website. I bet you it's on
Yeah.
there. But I did.
That is
thought I-
pretty amazing. That's rare. I don't, somebody would do
He
that.
he doxed himself, guys.
he
Right.
doxed himself.
Right.
I
You
think
know
I
what,
have.
though?
I think guys. I think I screenshotted the number. Maybe.
Oh, did you? Cool.
I think I might have it, but I would go to the
Yeah.
website to make sure.
The number was never on the screen.
Yeah, we can listen
yeah.
back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Maybe.
But that's
Russ
really
could go.
cool. I feel like Chris is going to be calling all the time with random
I
questions.
might reach out. I'll be like, hey, I'm over in Kensington. You want to meet for lunch?
Yeah, that was a good question too, Philly Chris, because that's important. You know.
Thanks.
Kensington.
I just think it's sad. I think it's sad, and it's interesting because there's a fair number of police over there, but we do need more. They just need to enforce the laws that are in place, though, too. So,
Right.
but
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
with the
think
right
a lot of
governor,
the
that would
police
happen.
do anything with that.
KPK says the idea that those great intelligent men were only referring to muskets knowing that firearms technology is progressing and had been progressing at an astonishing rate is laughable and childish. Well, never mind the fact that that's just simply not true, that there were only muskets back then. You had puckle guns, you had the pepper box revolvers, you had all kinds of stuff that was...
How about a cannon?
You could
More
have
of it all.
cannons, and he recently said you couldn't, which is not true. You could have cannons. You can still have cannons.
Your mom's a cannon.
I want a cannon.
Russ with the mom jokes tonight. We should get a Mike G. cannon.
Oh, gee.
What do you think, Mike?
A cannon of mustard.
Yeah.
I used to have a
Or
cannon.
Russ will apply
You
to
can buy
his
the-
job today.
I fired off those little ones. You put the black powder in with the safety wick and stuff. They're fun.
Or how about a cobra and a cannon?
Cobra and a cannon.
I
Love it.
love it. Cobra
Yeah.
and a cannon.
Shoot
You know
cobras.
that gun show I always talk about? It's the world's largest gun show. It takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma every year, the Wanamaker. So I was there with one of my buddies, and we saw this little wooden-looking cannon. Asked the guy, "What's this?" He said, "Oh, this will shoot a golf ball about a mile." We're like,
Wow.
what?
Wow, really? And we don't have one of those. Why?
Yeah, why don't we have one of those?
Could you imagine shooting a golf ball a mile and some random guy walking around down the street?
Wow.
Blocked in the head.
Yeah, that would do some damage.
Ow, where'd that come from?
They call it like the Tiger Woods cannon or something.
Yeah. Right.
Has anybody ever asked you about potato guns, Mike? The legality of potato guns?
No. It
No,
was like
okay.
zucchini guns,
Yeah. You ever see those, the potato
That's
guns?
real.
potato guns.
Oh, yeah.
Do you mean
Chris, is that a
machine
joke?
guns?
My uncle made one a long
I've used
time
one.
ago.
Yeah, you can make them out of PVC pipe from Home Depot.
Oh.
Yeah, my uncle.
Well, that's
Well,
actually a
ignition
musket.
trigger in there from a grill, and you open the back and you spray in the hairspray, close it real quick, and hit the red igniter button off a grill, and it sparks inside the chamber and fires a potato. quite a distance. Yeah, it's pretty
That sounds like
fun.
a blast.
Yeah, it was on a private location in Mexico, so it wasn't here.
And we're talking about real potato, like the actual
Real potatoes. Yeah, real
actual
potatoes.
potato.
Yeah. Mhm.
I thought I remembered at the store them selling these little things called potato guns. But I
They
don't
have
think
little ones for kids that like you push it into the potato and then air pops it out. But I'm talking
Gotcha.
about something that's 6-8 feet long, made
like
out of.
launches a potato out. I
Yeah,
see some
you have to
pictures on the
use
internet.
the actual pressure rated PVC pipe, like plumbing pipe at Home Depot, and you build it. They're pretty easy to put together, but I don't know what the legalities are in something like that. I've never built one, but
It sounds like a short barrel shotgun.
Yeah, right. Everything.
Yeah.
Is now.
Do you hold
Right.
it with your shoulder?
There was
Right.
this guy in my school. He actually turned out to be a successful business owner in San Diego the last time he called. I spoke to him in years, but he reached out to the radio program's Facebook page, and somebody let me know and got me in touch with him.
hmm
And he always had this idea in high school. He wanted to start a potato band called Spudnik. And he said, we'll get a band of like 13 guys like Slipknot. We'll go out there and we'll look like a heavy metal band, but we'll play bluegrass music and we'll just throw potatoes into the crowd all
There you go.
Nice. Nice.
Oh my God.
Spudnik.
That sounds like fun.
Interesting.
But-
Very
Sounds like a
creative.
good high school idea. Yeah.
Press would go to.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Sounds like a
That could be an entire program and it's telling high school stories.
Sounds like a
right?
Right.
Senior
Oh
prank.
gosh. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, give you
Has
an
anybody
example.
been
We created
following
an
the-
office. There was this locker room in the back of the boys' locker room
Okay.
that nobody was using, and so we had taken furniture from various parts of the building that weren't being used. So like, I had my own desk back there, like a full like teacher's desk back
Oh, that's
there
awesome.
with all kinds of stuff in it.
Did you have a
Yeah.
red stapler?
I didn't have a red staple,
Oh, okay.
but I
darn.
did smoke cigars in there.
Nice.
Sounds like an episode of Better Call Saul.
Right,
I don't
yeah.
think I was supposed to do that, but
Mm,
my office called it my office.
there you go.
What else we got? You know, it's
I was-
fascinating. Oh, go ahead, Liberty.
No, it's kind of switching gears, but I was just going to ask if anybody's following the Johnny Depp v. Amber Heard trial, like me.
Some of it. I haven't had a chance to see a lot of it, but I caught a little bit.
I
of it.
will
It's
say the
interesting,
point
yeah.
that our show would make is that it's kind of like a result of the Me Too movement, in which they're saying like if you just believe all women right off the gate without looking at the facts, right?
Right.
And I
right.
think that's kind of like a lot. I mean, and also in general, like if you in Hollywood and you know the drug lifestyle and all that stuff, it's going to bring this kind of thing in your life, you know. With money comes a lot of problems too, you know. So anyway, those are my two conclusions. But it was really funny watching the judge yesterday with some of the witnesses. The guy was like vaping on the camera in his car, and the judge didn't stop
yeah,
it.
that was wild.
He
And
was
she
vaping
just
in the
shook her
courtroom?
head
No, they had him
in
on
the court-
Zoom.
well, no, it was
Oh,
him.
really?
He was
And he
vaping.
This Zoom
Oh, I didn't
on his
catch that.
phone in his car, and he was like vaping, and
Really? Hmm.
I saw
the other guy was wearing a hat. It's like,
great.
dude, if I were the judge,
Yeah.
take control. And I
People
said,
don't have like a level of basic
Right.
respect anymore. I saw they're doing vaping pictures for wedding photography now. Like if a lot of these younger couples will get pictures of them with those big plumes of vape coming out.
That's
With the vape?
interesting.
Yeah, at their wedding. So I guess the couple's into vaping. I don't know. It's a big thing with the younger kids. I was reading an article, and a friend of mine told me about, a friend of the show, about vaping and the metal particulate that comes off the element that, you know, is damaging people's lungs now. So it's not even
Yeah,
just
no
the.
kidding.
Yeah.
You know, when everybody beginning was saying, "Oh, it's way better than cigarettes," and everything.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you know? It's like,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sure it is.
Yeah, there's like no end to it. That's what I heard somebody say. Like you just keep vaping. Like there's no
right.
end.
That's what
Like,
I always
Mhm.
said. I said that
Mhm.
with a cigarette, when it's done, you know it's done.
Right.
That thing, you sit there, you suck on it all day. It can't
All
be
day,
good for
yeah.
you.
No, it can't. It can't be. And all the stuff that's in those oils and whatever's in there, who knows, you know.
right.
It sounds disgusting and
John-
toxic.
Pretty much.
And who knows what they're putting in there too, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't know.
What else, Liberty? I know you probably have a ton of things. We always just steamroll.
No, I saw a lot of just stories over the weekend, ridiculous stories. We did talk about that. We'll get to that, but the Florida sheriff encouraging the gun safety course. I thought I put that article in the doc. I know
the gun safety course.
Gun safety course.
It was the same thing you had talked about with the Florida sheriff. He was encouraging and what to do, but I guess he was encouraging to get some training too.
Didn't he? I don't know. That's what I got out of the part that I saw.
What'd you get out of it, Mike?
It's in the doc. If Russ wants to open it, I don't know.
Yeah. Why don't we pull that up?
You can actually look at his words. Russ, I would pull that up. And then in the meantime, there was a Supreme Court hearing on, remember that coach who got fired for praying?
Yeah.
So that is going on. So I thought that was interesting. And then I saw something online about the New World Order, and it was actually a pastor that I follow, and out of nowhere he posted this really thing that says things will not go back to normal. The world is preparing for the Antichrist, and it was just so it was a lot. I didn't expect it, and I thought of Philly Chris right away, of course. But it was a post about.
Anytime you think of the Antichrist, you think of me.
No, it was and he said, I want to see what you guys thought of this. He said, ask your church pastor about the New World Order and Illuminati. If he says it's just a conspiracy theory, you'd better find a new church. And I was like, well, I don't think anybody can say, right, when this is coming. We have to kind of go by the Bible. But things aren't going very well right now, right? But I thought it was pretty bold of him.
Yeah. Maybe we should get him on the show. Give me his information. I'll reach out.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's got 42,000 followers. So he's got a lot of followers, but I wasn't expecting it,
Mm-hmm. Well, see what happens.
What do you think about that?
The thing.
Me?
The doc. Oh, Chris. What do you think about the New World Order of Wrestling, brother?
What do you think about a pastor? To you guys, what do you guys think about a pastor bringing that up? Do you think that that's, like in that territory? What do you guys think?
I'd definitely be interested in hearing more about what he said. What was that, Mike?
Revelation.
Right. I guess I still don't really understand New World Order, so I have to understand more.
So what happened was Scott Hall and Kevin Nash left the WWF. They got to WCW. And then Hulk Hogan was coming over to WCW.
Right.
But his whole act of, the red and yellow and I'm a real American and everything, it really wasn't working for the times because things had gotten a little more grungy and everything like that. So when he showed up, he finally showed up, everybody thought, he's there to help the good guys. He turned on the good guys and joined Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, and they formed, he said in his promo that he cut at the end, he said, you can call us the New World Order of Wrestling, brother. And that was it. It's the beginning of an era. So, do you have any other questions about it, Liberty?
History Lessons by Mike G.
No, I'm still curious though. Is it so I guess Revelation, like Mike said, but yeah, can the church
I think
be so
it's an
bold
interesting question, Liberty, and maybe we could talk in more detail on the next episode if Mike is interested in hearing more about it. But I think, there's something to it. I mean, there's a lot of things out there if you look around for yourself and things that are, put out in the public domain about certain plans and agendas for where we're headed that are laid out there. So
there's things that seem so you can't deny it, but at the end of the day, only God knows, right? And he knows when these things are going to occur. So we can, you can see signs and things like this, but we ultimately don't know. So I think any pastor saying, I know for sure, that's not a good sign, right? But to be looking out and to be cautious,
Always good to be cautious. Always good to be looking out.
And,
Always. And one thing, I think Liberty has more, but I just wanted to remind you, Mike, we want to announce who the winner is of what's in the envelope here at some point, whenever you feel that's a good time to do that.
Do you think about the sheriff or no?
It's an article. Russ can just scroll down.
Wasn't there a thing in the newspaper? Did they send the newspaper clipping?
Yeah, but that newspaper clipping was basically a quote from this article.
Oh, was it?
From what I read, yeah, because I found the exact statement in this article. So if Russ just scroll, we'll get there.
I can't scroll. This website disabled scrolling because I have an ad blocker. I hate this website. This website is disgusting. I hate it.
Is that photo and maybe we'll save that for Justice Brother next week. There's 3 guests. There's Justice Brother. There's Chris Flail. We want to have him back on to do a long form interview. And then there's this pastor up in northern Pennsylvania who wanted to come on and talk a little bit about Christian masculinity, being a man and a Christian in today's society, because society has this certain idea about what you're not allowed to do as a man anymore, and what makes you all these ists, right? Or you're a misogynist, or Buddy Bacham was on CNN talking about something that was biblical, and they called him sexist for saying it. So there's a lot of that going on. But
certainly is.
This guy will be a great guest.
Mm-hmm.
And then Justice Brother maybe come back on.
Awesome.
Talk about that article. And that would be
there
good.
It was. Mike, I can read what it says. Do you want me to read it, or do you want to save it for the Justice Brothers?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and save it? I think about time to wrap. We have anything else that we want to discuss?
The only thing I did want to mention is we have a winner. I did a randomized selection of the folks that had participated in the show last week for the 1 ounce piece of bullion silver here. I'll take it out of the envelope and announce the winner. Is that okay, Mike? You want me to do that?
Go ahead.
Woohoo.
Okay, cool. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen from the Mike G in the Morning Show, the winner is Rita.
Rita
has won a 1 troy ounce fine silver, 0.999 plus, made in the USA. Piece of silver from Delaware Valley Rare Coin Company. If anybody didn't check out last week, right? We had him on. Yeah. Check out last week's episode. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll have him back on sometime. But over in Broomall, Pennsylvania, you can get your gold and silver at Delaware Valley Rare Coin Company, 610-356-3555, www.dvrarecoins.com. So Rita, we'll be getting this to you. If we need your contact information, we'll get that from you and we'll send that out to you. So,
all right.
Also, if anyone, all right, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
If anyone wants.
There was a subliminal message in the promotional video I posted last week before last week's episode, and the first one to email Mike with the right answer will win a second one.
Okay.
So anyway,
email at MikeG.in-the-morning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Please write us at MikeG.in-the-morning.com and email us what the subliminal message was.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
All right.
And congrats, Rita.
Right. Congratulations to Rita. Thanks for tuning in.
I was wondering why I started barking like a dog after I watched that.
Did anybody see it? Does anybody? Well, we don't announce it on the air, but anyway, just trying to have some fun, trying to keep it light. But thanks, Rita, for being such a loyal fan, and we love having you as part of the show.
It was fun going to the cigar shop this weekend.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah,
that place is amazing.
Great place. It's beautiful. We have to go back.
Yeah. A good fight too, right?
Great fight.
I wonder if anybody else watched the fight. I wonder if any of our listeners watched the fight this weekend.
Actually, I heard John's going to watch it 2 weeks from now.
John's going to watch it.
Wait. The big question is, Billy Chris, I heard he went shopping at Mike G's supplement.
Oh yeah. I got home and I was pulling the stuff out of my bag and I was like, oh, geez, I totally stole this. Turned into a kleptomaniac there.
That's why I'm so tired, is because I haven't been able to get my liver, right?
Is that what's going on? Yeah, I'll get that back to you. We'll have to schedule another jam session really soon. I'll bring it back. It might be empty by then. I've been eating them like candy. They're pretty good.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, just good.
It's beef.
Get your
like
own
beef-
liver.
Right. Good stuff, though.
That was a good evening, though. Cigars,
was great,
fights,
yeah.
and that restaurant's pretty good, too, huh?
All of it was amazing. Thank you very much for your hospitality.
I wish there were fights on every single weekend.
Maybe we should get you and Russ in the ring soon here so we can have one sooner than later.
I know, there we
Russ
go.
been training at all? I heard Russ might be doing a little training. Is that true, Russ?
No.
Oh, of course it isn't true.
He's been training with Hot Pockets.
Right.
Russ is going to be, remember Ron Burgundy when they asked him to play the flute and he's like, I'm not prepared. Really, I'm not. And he's taking the flute out of his jacket.
Right.
They're going to cut to Russ and he's going to be on a speed bag, just like looking the other way, knocking it out. Guy, I'm not prepared. Really, I'm not prepared.
Unless you count putting one Hot Pocket in each hand and doing curls with Hot Pockets.
Double fisting Hot Pockets. That's how Russ is prepping.
To his mouth.
Yeah.
I haven't had a Hot Pocket in years.
Yeah,
Don't bother. Their price went up.
Oh, no.
Everything. That's not news. Everything went up.
I stopped buying them because they got too expensive.
Oh,
Are
what are you buying?
I did talk to somebody mentioned something they were doing a show from the cigar shop. I did talk to somebody about that. Did I mention that to you guys?
Oh, you did.
Say that again.
I talked to one of the managers at one of the cigar shops about doing. Maybe that new place would be. If that new place were down with that, that would be incredible.
I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah, I could make some calls if you want. Let's talk about it off the air, and I'll reach out and schedule.
Do you still have
something.
Scott's cell phone number?
I probably do. I have to check. I did change phones there recently and had an issue with some of the contacts, but if not, I'll reach out to you. Yeah.
You remember that? You got his number.
When I sold the membership that day, you mean?
No. This was actually when he was working at the store over where I was, right by where I lived.
Right.
Remember? And one day you showed up to grab us some cigars, and he had popped out for a little bit, and you were sitting there waiting. And when he came back, you're like, dude, could I have your cell number? Because if you pop out again, I'm calling you. I need you to get back here if I'm in a rush or something. And he just gave it to you.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that. That's funny because, yeah.
Same guy.
I still have it. Yeah, same guy. Yeah, he's a great guy. Very good guy. Yeah, that was fun. Good cigars. Nothing like a good cigar.
But if we could do one from that location, I'm pretty impressed, you know?
It's very nice in there, yeah. Yeah, and then we could, people could come by and check out the show live, like really live. That'd be fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
people wanted to come by and sit there and
Come by and meet Russ.
Yeah, exactly. Bring some Hot Pockets.
Bring some Hot Pockets because
Yeah.
apparently he needs a GoFundMe for the Hot Pockets.
Beautiful.
Mike
How
and I
much
can
has the
smoke
price
cigars
gone
and Russ can eat Hot Pockets.
Yeah.
I wonder if they come out better in the oven or the microwave.
I would
Russ,
think oven.
how much price raised?
It went
Okay.
from like $1 per Hot Pocket to like $3.
Oh, wow.
It's ridiculous.
Similar to gas.
What are you eating
That's
instead?
up by 200%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 300. What are you eating instead?
How did I get thrust into the spotlight about food?
Russ, what are you eating instead?
Yeah, what are you having?
I've been getting.
What are you eating?
DiGiorno stuffed crust pizzas.
Okay.
Ooh.
What'd you have for breakfast today?
I didn't have breakfast.
What'd you have for lunch?
I didn't have lunch. I just eat one because it's. I don't know if it's a full day's worth of whatever calories, carbs, whatever it is. I don't count these things. I don't know what they are. I don't even really care. It's probably at least a full day's worth. But I've been eating just one of those, and I've been losing weight.
Oh,
so Russ, that's what's called intermittent fasting without even knowing it. You're doing intermittent fasting.
Like a caveman.
I've been losing weight by eating pizza. It sounds like snake oil.
No, that's actually you just need like healthy nutrients, Russ. Like, but you are doing something called intermittent fasting, which is a big thing in the weight loss community.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's healthy. You're just getting DiGiorno pizza rust.
I genuinely doubt. I don't think anybody would use the word healthy to describe this.
Russ needs a Vitamix, that's for sure.
That's right, the Vitamix.
I'll just go shopping at Mike's house.
Quesadillas.
I'll just go shopping at Mike's house for all the vitamins. I'll get the 5-finger discount.
There you go. Stop by. That fight will start early. Just don't come in unannounced.
Oh, speaking of fights, Mayweather's fighting in a couple weeks.
No,
Mike, I'm here.
Wasn't that 7 years ago or something?
It is the 10-year-old news. Mayweather's.
No, the 14th. Mayweather's facing a guy named Moore.
Michael Moore. I heard Tyson bit off Holyfield's ear or something a couple weeks ago.
Actually, Tyson was on a plane punching.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I have an article. The guy deserved it, but actually, wait, there was an update. The guy hired an attorney and said that he was just a really overly excited fan. Yeah, okay. It said lawyer of man punched makes statement from the airplane incident. And yeah, I think basically the conclusion was that he was excusing his behavior because he was just an overly excited fan. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sure.
So who is Mayweather?
He was standing over him, like, agitating him.
Let's definitely talk about that with Rich when Rich comes on.
That's a good idea. That'd be a good conversation.
Anderson Silva is also fighting too that same day.
Rich will just say, "Come on, man."
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
You're like, what are you thinking? Come on, man.
What do you think about Tyson Fury Liberty?
Tyson Fury is amazing, and I couldn't believe that he was like 32. I think that his opponent put a statement out saying that he got pushed. He didn't get knocked out. But
that was so ridiculous.
Pushed. Sure, that's what happened.
Ridiculous.
I'm sorry. Are you saying Humpty Dumpty was pushed?
Yeah.
By Woody?
Yeah, pretty much.
And Tyson Fury he's big, and I love that he always gives credit to Jesus as soon as he's done. We need more people like him in that spotlight doing that, and he's just, I don't know, he's got a cool story. He went astray and then came back and has a family and is living good, and he's strong. I like him. I like him much more than Conor McGregor. I'm just putting it out there.
He's got the perfect physique too.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he's big. He's definitely. I don't know if it's perfect.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, I like a.
Saying that because he's in better shape than me, but I'm not.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, Philly Chris kind of looks.
I'm a little
like
puffy
him.
there too, but he's.
I decided Philly Chris looks like Fury. But I would choose Tyson Fury over McGregor.
If they fought each other?
No, just as like if I'd watch somebody, I would Tyson.
5'8", 170 versus 6'9", 265. Right.
Nice.
6'9", man.
Wow.
6'9".
Yeah, is Fury gonna play with McGregor like a G.I. Joe or?
Yeah. Oh my God, crazy.
All right. Cool. That's it. I've had it with you folks.
All right.
That's all for today. Stick around for We the People, the Constitution Matters. Pastor David Whitney, Professor Phil Duffy. I'll be joining as your legal analyst. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.